The silver bracelet caught the light as it fell from Zoe's bag, hitting Liam's kitchen floor with a metallic clink that would shatter 3 lives forever. Vale Industries. The name engraved on its surface was the same corporation that had destroyed everything he'd ever loved. The college girl he'd rented his spare room to for $200 wasn't who she claimed to be. She was the daughter of his worst nightmare. Welcome to my story. Comment your city below to see how far this tale travels. Let's begin. The October rain hammered against the windows of the 4th floor walk-up as Liam Hart stared at the stack of bills spread across his kitchen table like a losing hand of cards. Electric, gas, water. Each envelope might as well have been stamped with "Final Notice" in blood-red letters. His fingers trembled slightly as he did the math for the 3rd time, hoping somehow the numbers would change. They didn't. $800 short. Again. From the living room, the sound of cartoons drifted through the thin walls. Ellie was watching her Saturday morning shows, blissfully unaware that her father was drowning in red ink. At 8 years old, she deserved that ignorance. She'd already lost enough. "Daddy, can we get pizza tonight?" Ellie's voice called out, hopeful and bright. Liam closed his eyes, feeling the weight of every broken promise he'd made since Sarah died. "We'll see, sweetheart. Maybe we can make our own pizza. That could be fun, right? Homemade is better anyway." Ellie chirped back, and God, that kid could find silver linings in storm clouds. The knock at the door was soft, almost apologetic. Liam wasn't expecting anyone couldn't afford to be. Bill collectors didn't usually work Saturdays, but these days, who knew? He approached the door with the wariness of a man who'd learned that unexpected visitors rarely brought good news. Through the peephole, he saw a young woman, early 20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a paint-stained denim jacket over what looked like thrift store clothes, and she was holding a piece of paper that was getting soggy in the rain. Liam opened the door but kept the chain on. "Can I help you?" "Hi, I'm here about the room, the rental listing." Her voice was soft, uncertain. "I called yesterday. Zoe Vale. The room." "Right." In desperation, Liam had posted an ad on 3 different sites 2 days ago. Spare bedroom for rent, $200 a month. Must be okay with kids, no parties. No drugs. References required. He'd gotten 2 responses, one from a guy who reeked of weed even through the phone, and this girl. "You're early," Liam said, glancing at his watch. "Thought we said noon." "I'm sorry, I can come back." She started to turn away, rain dripping from her jacket. "No, it's fine. Come in." He undid the chain, stepping aside. "Just keep your voice down. My daughter's watching TV." Zoe Vale stepped inside, immediately pulling off her soaked jacket. Underneath, she wore a simple black sweater with a hole in the left elbow that she'd tried to hide by pushing up the sleeves. Everything about her screamed struggling college student, from the canvas bag covered in pins to the shoes that had seen better days. "Thank you," she said, and there was something in her voice, a genuine gratitude that made Liam's suspicion ease slightly. "I really appreciate you seeing me." He led her to the kitchen, gesturing for her to sit. She chose the chair facing away from the living room, as if instinctively knowing not to intrude on Ellie's space. "Coffee," Liam offered, already reaching for the pot that had been sitting since 6 a.m. "That would be amazing, actually. Black is fine." He poured 2 cups, the silence stretching between them like a tightrope. Finally, he sat down across from her, pushing the bills aside. "So, Zoe Vale, tell me about yourself." She wrapped her hands around the mug, seeming to draw strength from its warmth. "I'm a junior at the City University, art major focusing on sculpture and installation work. I work part-time at the campus library, and I do some freelance graphic design when I can get it." She pulled out a folder from her bag, dry somehow, despite the rain. "I brought references. My previous landlord, my academic advisor, my boss at the library." Liam flipped through the papers. Everything looked legitimate. More than legitimate, glowing, actually. Quiet tenant. Responsible and mature. Never late with rent. "Why are you looking to move?" he asked, watching her face carefully. A shadow crossed her features. "My current situation is complicated. My roommate's boyfriend essentially moved in without asking, and it's gotten uncomfortable. I need somewhere quiet where I can focus on my thesis project." you're okay with the fact that I have a kid, 8-year-old girl. She can be energetic. For the first time, Zoe smiled a real smile that transformed her face. I love kids. I used to volunteer at the children's art program at the community center before budget cuts killed it. Something in the way she said it, a flicker of anger quickly suppressed, resonated with Liam. He knew about budget cuts. Vail Industries had cited them when they'd laid off his entire department 18 months ago, 3 weeks before Sarah's diagnosis, 2 months before the insurance ran out. Daddy. Ellie's voice preceded her appearance in the kitchen doorway. She stood there in her pajamas, pink unicorns that were getting too small, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Who's this? This is Zoe, Liam said carefully. She might be renting the spare room. Ellie studied Zoe with the unfiltered intensity only children could manage. Do you like dragons? Zoe blinked clearly, not expecting the interrogation to start with mythical creatures. Yes, dragons are pretty cool. What about unicorns? Classic. Can't go wrong with unicorns. Mermaids. Depends. Are we talking Disney mermaids or the scary ones from the old stories? Ellie's eyes widened with delight. You know about the scary ones. Oh yeah, Siren Selkie's Rusalka. My grandmother used to tell me all the old stories. And just like that, Ellie was sold. She climbed into the chair next to Zoe. Rabbit still clutched tight and began describing her own made-up creature, a flying seahorse with rainbow scales. Zoe listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, even asking questions about its habitat and diet. Liam watched them interact, something loosening in his chest. It had been so long since Ellie had connected with someone new. Sarah's death had made her cautious, withdrawn, but here she was chattering away to a complete stranger about imaginary worlds. Ellie, why don't you go get dressed? Liam suggested. Let me finish talking to Miss Zoe. Can she see my drawings? Ellie asked, already bouncing on her toes. Maybe later, sweetheart. After Ellie scampered off, Zoe turned back to him. She's wonderful. She's everything, Liam said simply. Which is why I need to be clear about the rules. No overnight guests, no parties, no drugs or heavy drinking. Quiet hours after 9 p.m. Kitchen and bathroom are shared, but I need them clean. Rent's due on the first, no exceptions. That all sounds perfect, actually. I'm pretty boring, to be honest, just me and my art projects. When would you want to move in? As soon as possible. I can pay first month and a deposit today if that works. Liam tried not to look too eager. $400 would keep the lights on, buy groceries, maybe even allow for that pizza Ellie wanted. Cash or check? Cash, if that's okay. She reached into her bag, and that's when Liam saw it, just a flash of silver at her wrist, mostly hidden by her sleeve. She pulled out an envelope counting out $400 bills. They were crisp new, like they'd just come from an ATM. Is the room furnished? She asked. Bed, dresser, desk. Pretty basic, but functional. That's perfect. I don't have much stuff anyway. They shook hands, her grip firmer than he'd expected. I can move in tomorrow if that works. Tomorrow's fine. I'll have Ellie help me clean it out today. She stood to leave, pulling her still damp jacket back on. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Really. You don't know how much this means. After she left, Liam stood in his doorway watching her disappear down the stairwell. Something nagged at him, some detail his mind had caught but not processed. He shook it off. $400. That's what mattered. Is she moving in? Ellie asked, appearing at his side. Tomorrow. Good. I like her. She knows about the scary mermaids. That night, as Liam tucked Ellie into bed, she asked, Do you think Mom would like Zoe? The question hit him like a physical blow. I think Mom would be happy we're making new friends. Me too, Ellie said, already drifting off. She seemed sad, though, like you sometimes. Out of the mouths of babes. Liam spent the rest of the evening cleaning out the spare room. It had become a storage space for all the things he couldn't bear to deal with. Boxes of Sarah's belongings, Ellie's outgrown toys, the exercise equipment he'd bought in a fit of optimistic self-improvement. As he worked, he found himself thinking about Zoe Vail. Something about her didn't quite fit. The crisp bills. The way she'd held herself straight back despite the thrift store close, the flash of silver at her wrist. He dismissed it. Everyone had their stories, their secrets. As long as she paid rent and was good to Ellie, the rest was none of his business. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly Seattle, having decided to live up to its reputation. Zoe showed up at exactly 10 a.m. with 2 suitcases and a backpack. That was it. Liam had expected more, somehow boxes of art supplies, canvases, the detritus of college life. But she traveled light. "Need help," he offered. "I've got it, thanks." She hauled everything up the 4 flights without breaking a sweat, which was more than Liam could say for himself these days. Ellie had made a welcome sign, crayon letters on construction paper, "Welcome home, Zoe," with dragons drawn in the corners. Zoe's eyes actually misted when she saw it. That's really sweet, Ellie. Can I put it on my door?" "I made you this too." Ellie produced a paper crane slightly lopsided, but made with evident care. "Mom taught me before she got sick. It's for good luck." Zoe took the crane like it was made of gold, cradling it carefully. "I'll keep it on my desk." "Thank you." The first week passed smoothly. Better than smoothly, actually. Zoe was the perfect tenant, quiet, clean, considerate. She left for classes early, came home late, and spent most of her time in her room. The few times they intersected in the kitchen, she was polite but not intrusive. She even started levying little origami figures for Ellie, a new one, each day, until there was a small menagerie on the kitchen windowsill. "She's teaching me," Ellie announced one afternoon, showing off a somewhat squashed paper frog. "She says I have natural talent." It was Thursday evening when things shifted. Liam had just gotten Ellie to bed and was settling in to review job listings and exercise in frustration he performed nightly when he heard movement in the kitchen. Zoe was making tea, moving with the careful quietness of someone trying not to disturb. "You don't have to sneak around," he said, making her jump. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you." "I just didn't want to wake anyone." She was wearing pajama pants and an oversized university sweatshirt, looking younger than usual. "Want some tea? I make a mean chamomile." They sat at the kitchen table, the same one where they'd first met just a week ago. The rain had returned, pattering against the windows in a rhythm that was almost soothing. "How's the thesis project going?" Liam asked, making conversation. "It's complicated. I'm working on a series about hidden truths. The things we bury, the secrets that poison us from underground up." She paused, seeming to realize how dark that sounded. "It's more optimistic than it sounds. It's about bringing things to light. Sounds intense. Art should be, don't you think it should matter? Otherwise, what's the point?" There was a passion in her voice that reminded him of Sarah, the way she'd talked about her nursing work before the budget cuts moved her to the understaffed clinic in Raven Lake, before the water made her sick. "Your daughter's really special," Zoe said, changing the subject. "She's got this light about her, even after losing her mom," Liam finished. "Yeah, she's resilient, more than me most days." "How long's?" 18 months, cancer. Started in her kidneys, spread everywhere. He didn't mention the water, didn't mention the class action lawsuit that was going nowhere. Didn't mention Vale Industries. "I'm sorry." "Everyone's sorry doesn't bring her back." The bitterness in his voice surprised him. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" "No, you're right. Sorry doesn't fix anything. It's just what people say when they don't know what else to say." She was staring into her tea like it held answers. "Sometimes I think the worst part about losing someone isn't the grief. It's the anger, the way it sits in your chest like a stone." Speaking from experience. "My mom, 4 years ago. Also cancer." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Also preventable." Something in the way she said it made Liam's skin prickle. But before he could ask more, she was standing rinsing her cup in the sink. "I should get back to work. Thanks for the tea break." That night, Liam lay awake thinking about preventable deaths and hidden truths. About a young woman with sad eyes and crisp $100 bills. About coincidences that might not be. Friday brought a crisis. Liam's card was declined at the grocery store. Not just over the limit frozen. The cheerful checkout girl called a manager who called the bank, who informed them that there had been suspicious activity and the account was under review. "But I need to buy food." Liam said, aware of how pathetic he sounded. I have a kid. The manager, a woman with kind eyes and a name tag reading Brenda, looked at the modest collection of groceries, milk, bread, peanut butter, the ingredients for homemade pizza. I can hold these for an hour if you want to sort it out. Liam nodded numbly, ushering Ellie out of the store. She hadn't understood what was happening, but she'd picked up on his distress. It's okay, Daddy. We have crackers at home. Jesus Christ, when had his 8-year-old become the one offering comfort? They were halfway home when Zoe appeared carrying a canvas bag from the same store. Hey, neighbors, she said brightly, then noticed Liam's expression. Everything okay? Fine, he said automatically. We couldn't buy the pizza stuff, Ellie announced. The card machine was broken. Zoe looked between them, understanding dawning. Oh, well, actually, I bought way too much stuff. I'm terrible at shopping, for one. Want to share I was going to make pasta anyway. We couldn't, Liam started. Please, Ellie promised to teach me how to make paper butterflies, didn't you? And somehow they ended up back at the apartment, Zoe unpacking what was clearly a deliberate over-shopping trip, not just pasta, but sauce salad, garlic bread, and yes, pizza ingredients. For tomorrow, she said firmly when Liam tried to protest. Ellie mentioned wanting pizza. They cooked together, Ellie chattering happily as she showed Zoe her paper folding techniques. It felt almost normal, almost like a family. After Ellie was in bed, Liam found Zoe on the fire escape sketching in a notebook. Thank you, he said simply. I'll pay you back. No need, consider it rent credit or something. She kept sketching, not looking at him. We all need help sometimes. Still, it was kind. She shrugged. Kindness isn't that hard. People just make it complicated. He sat down beside her, the metal grating cold through his jeans. What are you drawing? She showed him it was the view from the fire escape, but transformed. The buildings were growing roots diving deep into the earth, tangling with buried things. It was beautiful and unsettling. Your hidden truths. Something like that. She closed the notebook. Can I ask you something? What happened with your job? Ellie mentioned you used to work in an office. Vale Industries, data analysis department. They laid off our entire division. Restructuring, they called it. 3 weeks later, my wife got sick. 2 months after that, insurance was gone. He laughed bitterly. Best part. They recorded record profits that quarter. Zoe had gone very still. Vale Industries. Yeah. Why you know them? Everyone knows them. They own half the city. Her voice was carefully neutral. I'm sorry. That's horrible. It's life. Corporations don't care about people. We're just numbers on a spreadsheet. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, my mom used to say that the truth always comes out. Sometimes it just needs help. Your mom sounds like an optimist. She was, right until the end. Zoe stood abruptly. I should go. Early class tomorrow. Saturday morning, Liam woke to find an envelope under his door. $400 in cash and a note next month's rent. Early is better than late, right? The money should have made him feel better. Instead, it made him uneasy. What college student paid rent 2 weeks early? In cash. He was pondering this when Ellie called from the living room. Daddy, come see what Zoe made. The coffee table was covered in origami creatures, but these were different from the simple cranes and frogs. These were complex, beautiful, almost architectural, and in the center, a paper sculpture of their building perfect down to the fire escape. She said it's for my birthday, Ellie exclaimed, but that's not for 3 weeks. I like to plan ahead, Zoe said from the doorway. She was dressed for class, backpack slung over one shoulder. Is that okay? It's beautiful, Liam said honestly. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Ellie's been teaching me so much, it's only fair. She knelt down to Ellie's level. I have to go to class, but later we can work on that butterfly, okay? After she left, Liam found himself staring at the paper building. It was incredibly detailed, each window, carefully cut. Each brick suggested with a fold. This wasn't the work of someone who did origami as a casual hobby. This was expertise. That afternoon, while Ellie napped, Liam did something he wasn't proud of. He Googled Zoe Vale. Nothing. No social media, no university listings, no art shows. It was like she didn't exist online. He tried the university website searching for art majors named Zoe. Nothing. He was being paranoid. Had to be. Plenty of people stayed off social media. Maybe she used a different name for her art. Maybe Daddy? Ellie stood in the hallway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Can we make the pizza now? Sure, sweetheart. They were rolling out dough when Zoe came home looking tired but smiling when she saw them. Pizza party. You have to help, Ellie insisted. Zoe makes the best shapes. Look, she can make the dough into a dragon. And she could. With quick, practiced movements, Zoe shaped the dough into a remarkably good dragon, complete with scales textured by a fork. Where'd you learn to do that? Liam asked. For just a second, she hesitated. My dad. He loved to cook before he got too busy. What's he do? What? Business, boring stuff. She changed the subject quickly. Ellie want to make a unicorn pizza. They spent the evening making increasingly ridiculous pizza shapes, the kitchen filling with laughter. It was the happiest Liam had seen Ellie in months. Maybe the happiest he'd been too. Later, after Ellie was asleep and they were cleaning up, Zoe said quietly, "She's lucky to have you." I'm the lucky one. No, I mean it. You're a good father. You put her first. Not everyone does that. There was something in her voice, a weight that spoke of personal experience. Your dad wasn't around much. He was around, just had different priorities. She dried a plate carefully, precisely. Money, power, legacy, the things that matter to people like him. People like him, she seemed to realize she'd said too much. Just, business types. The ones who think earnings reports are more important than earnings impacts. It was an oddly specific way to phrase it. Liam filed it away with all the other oddities, the crisp bills, the lack of online presence, the way she sometimes caught herself before speaking like she was translating from another language. Sunday was quiet. Zoe spent most of it in her room working on her thesis. Liam could hear her moving around the occasional scrape of furniture. When she emerged for dinner, she looked troubled. Everything okay? He asked. Just family stuff. My dad's being difficult about something. Anything I can help with? She smiled sadly. No. This is something I have to handle myself. But thank you. That night, Liam was awakened by voices in the hallway. He crept to the door, peering through the peephole. Zoe was standing by the stairwell, talking on her phone. Her voice was different, harder, more authoritative. I don't care what he says. I'm not coming back. No, you don't understand. I found something, evidence, the kind that could just tell him I need more time. I know what I'm doing. She hung up, standing in the hallway for a long moment, head bowed. When she turned back toward the apartment, Liam scrambled back to bed, but sleep didn't come. Evidence of what? What had she found? Monday started normal enough. Ellie off to school, Zoe to classes, Liam to another soul-crushing job interview. But when he got home, something was off. The apartment door was properly locked. Nothing obviously disturbed, but there was a feeling like someone had been there. In his room, his laptop was open. He always closed it. Always. Heart-pounding, he checked the browser history. Nothing new. But when he opened his documents folder, there was a new file. Insurance. Doc. Inside, a single line. Check your old benefits folder. A friend. Liam's hands shook as he navigated to the folder he hadn't opened in over a year. Sarah's medical records, insurance claims, the denial letters, and there a subfolder he didn't remember creating, Raven Lake. Inside were documents he'd never seen before. Water testing reports, internal memos from Vale Industries, email chains discussing contamination levels and acceptable losses, and at the bottom a PDF titled Casualty Projections. Sarah's name was on page 3. They'd known. They'd known the water was poisoned, knew people would die, and they'd calculated it would be cheaper to pay settlements than clean up. Liam ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left. Then he sat on the bathroom floor, shaking with rage so pure it felt like it might consume him. Mr. Hart, Zoe's voice from the doorway. Liam, are you okay? He looked up at her, this stranger in his home. Who are you? She knelt beside him, and for the first time he saw past the thrift store clothes and messy hair. Saw the way she held herself, the careful pronunciation of her words, the manicured hands she usually kept hidden in her sleeves. Who are you? He repeated. She sighed, and it was like watching a mask fall away. When she spoke, her voice had lost its careful casualness, revealing something polished underneath. My name is Zoe Vale. My father is Conrad Vale, CEO of Vale Industries. She met his eyes steadily. And I'm here to bring him down. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Liam felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. This girl who'd played with his daughter, who'd shared their pizza, who'd saved them from hunger, she was the enemy's daughter. Get out, he whispered. Please let me explain. Get out! He was on his feet now, rage giving him strength. You're his daughter. His daughter. Do you have any idea what he did to us? To my wife? Yes, she said simply. That's why I'm here. Don't you dare. What is this, some kind of sick game rich girl plays poor to feel better about daddy's blood money? No. She stood too, and there was steel in her spine now. I'm here because I found out what he did. Raven Lake, the others. 23 communities poisoned for profit. I'm here because someone needs to stop him. And you just happened to pick my apartment. No, I picked you specifically because you lost the most, because you'd understand what needs to be done. I don't believe you. She walked to her room, returning with a red USB drive. This is everything. Every document, every email, every cover-up. 3 years of evidence. The FBI would kill for this, but I needed to be sure it would get to the right people. People who wouldn't bury it for a payout. Liam stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, but verify the documents I put on your laptop. Check them against the public records. Call the lawyers from the class action. They'll confirm the water reports are real. She set the drive on the table. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the evidence. Why would you betray your own father? For the first time, her composure cracked. Because my mother died of kidney cancer 5 years ago. We lived in Riverside Heights for 2 years when I was a teenager. Dad said the water was fine, said the protests were just troublemakers. Mom believed him. I believed him. Riverside Heights. Liam knew that name. Another Vale Industries contamination site. Another cluster of cancer cases. He killed her, Zoe continued, voice hollow. His greed killed my mother, and he stood at her funeral talking about God's plan. There is no God in what he did. Just profit margins and acceptable losses. The front door opened. Daddy, I'm home. Both adults froze. Ellie bounded into the kitchen, backpack dragging behind her. Zoe, look what I made in art class. She held up a painted paper plate, a swirl of colors that might have been a rainbow or might have been chaos. It's you and me and Daddy. Zoe knelt down, examining the painting with apparent seriousness. It's beautiful, Ellie. Is that us having pizza? Yes, and look, I made you with your pretty bracelet. Liam's eyes went to Zoe's wrist. There it was finally visible, a silver bracelet with Vale Industries engraved in small letters. She saw him looking and pulled her sleeve down. Ellie, why don't you go change out of your school clothes? Liam said, voice carefully controlled. But I want to show Zoe. Now, sweetheart. Ellie pouted but obeyed, casting confused looks back at them. When they were alone again, Liam said, The bracelet. You've been wearing it this whole time. It was my mother's. She got it at the company gala the year before she got sick. She was so proud. Zoe touched it unconsciously. I wear it to remember what he took. I need time to think, to verify this. I understand. But Liam, we don't have much time. He knows I have the drive. He's looking for me. That's why I've been staying off the grid paying cash, but he'll find me eventually. He always does. Then why not just go to the FBI now? Because without the right pressure, without public attention, it'll get buried. A fine maybe, a slap on the wrist, no jail time, no real justice. She met his eyes. I need someone who understands the stakes, Someone who won't let them sweep it under the rug. Someone with nothing left to lose. Someone with everything to fight for, she corrected, glancing toward Ellie's room. That night after Ellie was asleep, Liam sat at his laptop going through the documents again, cross-referencing, verifying. Every horrific detail was real. The cancer rates, the cover-ups, the decisions to keep polluting because cleanup would affect quarterly projections. Sarah's name appeared 17 times across various documents, a statistic, an acceptable loss. He was so absorbed that he almost missed the soft knock on his door. Zoe stood there looking younger than ever in oversized pajamas. "I'm sorry," she said, "for the deception, for everything my family did. I know it doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry." "You're right, it doesn't mean anything." She nodded, accepting the blow. "I'll leave tomorrow if you want, find somewhere else. But the drive, please, do something with it. Don't let them win." "Where would you go?" "I don't know, somewhere he won't think to look." Liam thought about Ellie's painting the three of them together like a family, thought about the paper crane still sitting on Zoe's desk visible through her open door, thought about second chances and unlikely allies. "You can stay," he heard himself say, "until we figure this out. But no more lies." "No more lies," she agreed. Tuesday brought a new routine. Zoe was still Zoe to Ellie, still the nice lady who made origami and knew about scary mermaids. But to Liam, she was something else, a co-conspirator, a weapon against the machine that had destroyed his life. They met after Ellie's bedtime, spreading documents across the kitchen table, building a case. Zoe knew things context that made the dry corporate speak come alive with malevolence. "This email here," she pointed, "about mitigation strategies. That's when they decided to buy up the medical clinics in affected areas. Control the diagnosis rates, make it look like a statistical anomaly instead of a pattern." "Jesus, how do you know all this?" "I've been in that world my whole life, private schools, corporate galas, listening to drunk executives brag about their cleverness." Her voice was bitter. "I speak fluent bastard. And your father never suspected you were gathering evidence. I was his perfect daughter. Straight A's appropriate boyfriends planning to get my MFA and marry some hedge fund prince." She laughed humorlessly. "He never imagined I was actually listening, actually learning." "What changed?" "Mom died, and I found her journals. She'd been documenting her symptoms for 2 years, trying to figure out what was wrong. She suspected the water, but Dad convinced her she was being paranoid, said the company had done extensive testing." Zoe's hands clenched. She believed him because she loved him, and it killed her. Wednesday afternoon, Liam noticed the black SUV parked across the street. It had been there that morning too, and the evening before. "Zoe," he called softly. She was helping Ellie with homework, the two of them bent over a math worksheet. "Almost done," Ellie said. "Zoe knows a trick for remembering the times tables." "That's great, sweetheart. Zoe, can I see you for a second?" She followed him to the window, saw the SUV, and went pale. "They found me." "Who are they?" "Dad's security team. Ex-military mostly. They won't do anything obvious, but they're watching, waiting for me to make a move." "What do we do?" "I don't know. I thought I'd have more time." She pulled out her phone, stared at it like it might bite. "He's called 17 times today. So call him back. Tell him you're fine." "You don't understand. Once he knows where I am, he'll come himself. And Conrad Vale doesn't take no for an answer." That night they sat in the dark living room watching the SUV through the blinds. Ellie was asleep, oblivious to the danger circling their small sanctuary. "I should leave," Zoe said. "Lead them away from you and Ellie. Where would you go?" "Doesn't matter. Somewhere public. Make it harder for them to grab me." "Grab you?" "They'd kidnap you." She gave him a look that said he was being naive. "I'm a troubled young woman with a history of mental health issues. At least that's what the paperwork would say. A danger to myself, in need of immediate psychiatric intervention." "He'd have you committed." "He's done it before. My cousin tried to go to the press about some insider trading, spent 6 months in a very expensive, very private facility in Switzerland, came back properly medicated and compliant." "Christ." "The Vale family doesn't do scandals, Liam. We do solutions." The SUV's engine started. They both tensed, but it was just idling. Then the passenger door opened and a man in a dark suit stepped out. He looked directly at their window and waved. "Shit," Zoe breathed. "That's Marcus, Dad's personal fixer." The man held up a phone, pointed at it, then at Zoe. The message was clear: "Answer your phone." Her phone rang immediately. "Don't," Liam said. "I have to. If I don't, they'll come up." She answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Marcus." "Miss Vale."
Joe,
The voice was cultured, pleasant, utterly terrifying. "Your father is concerned. You haven't been attending classes." "I've been sick." "At a hotel?" "Because you haven't been at your apartment for 2 weeks." "I needed space." "Of course. Your father understands. He'd like to give you all the space you need. Perhaps at the house in the Hamptons. You always loved it there." "I'm fine where I am." "And where might that be?" Zoe looked at Liam. He nodded. "With friends." "Friends?" Marcus's tone suggested he knew exactly who these friends were. "Your father would like to meet these friends. Ensure they're appropriate company." "I'm 23 years old, Marcus. I don't need his approval for my friends." "No, but you do need his money for your tuition, your apartment, your entire life, really." The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. "He'll be in town tomorrow. Lunch at Bernardin's, 1 o'clock. Don't disappoint him, Miss Vale." The line went dead. "I have to go," Zoe said. "No, we go to the FBI tonight, right now. With what documents that I stole from my father's private server, they'll arrest me before they even look at the evidence, and his lawyers will have it all suppressed by morning." "Then what?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I go to lunch, buy us time. Maybe I can convince him I'm having a rebellious phase. Rich girl slumming it. He might believe that. And if he doesn't, then we better have a backup plan." They stayed up until 3 a.m. copying the drive, uploading files to secure servers, creating dead man switches. If something happened to Zoe, the documents would go to every major news outlet in the country. "It's not enough," she said finally. "He'll deny everything, say they're forgeries. Without testimony, without a witness willing to go on record, I'll do it." "Liam, no. You don't understand what he's capable of. He'll destroy you. Take Ellie." "He already destroyed me. He already took everything." Liam's voice was steady. "I'll testify, publicly, make it impossible to ignore." Thursday dawned bright and cold. Zoe dressed carefully. Gone were the thrift store clothes. She emerged from her room looking like what she was, corporate royalty. Designer dress pearls that probably cost more than Liam's monthly rent, the silver bracelet polished and prominent. "You look different," Ellie said, eating her cereal. "I have an important meeting today." "For your art." "Something like that." Zoe knelt down. "Ellie, can you do me a favor? Keep this safe for me." She handed her a paper crane, this one made from metallic silver paper. "It's special. I'll put it with my treasures." Ellie ran to her room. "If something happens," Zoe started. "Nothing's going to happen. You're going to lunch. You're going to play the part. You're going to come home." "Home," she repeated softly. "Yeah." The black SUV followed her taxi. Liam watched from the window until both vehicles disappeared around the corner. Then he called the number Zoe had given him, a lawyer from the class action suit, one of the few still fighting. "Mr. Hart." "Yes, I remember your wife's case. What kind of documents?" "I see. Can you bring them to my office?" "Now." "Yes, I think that would be wise." Liam was gathering the papers when his phone rang. Zoe. "How's lunch?" "He knows." Her voice was tight with fear. "He knows everything. About the drive, about you, about what I'm planning. Liam, he's coming there." "What, when?" "Now. He's sending Marcus to collect the drive. And to deal with loose ends." "Ellie, get her and run. Now." The line went dead. Liam grabbed the drives, the documents, shoved them in a bag. "Ellie, we're going on an adventure. But I have school." "No school today. Come on, sweetie. We need to hurry." They were in the hallway when the elevator dinged. Marcus stepped out, flanked by 2 other men in suits. His smile was pleasant, professional. "Mr. Hart, Miss Ellie. Going somewhere." "The park." Liam said, pushing Ellie behind him. How nice. Perhaps we could chat first about your house guest. I don't think so. Marcus sighed. Mr. Hart, let's be civilized. You have something that belongs to Mr. Vale. Return it, and we can all go about our day. I don't know what you're talking about. The drive, Mr. Hart. The stolen proprietary information. Theft of corporate secrets is a serious crime. But Mr. Vale is willing to be lenient. The drive for your freedom. And if I don't have it, then we'll have to search your apartment, thoroughly. And it would be such a shame if we found evidence of other crimes. Drug paraphernalia, perhaps, the kind of thing that might make child services question your fitness as a parent. You son of a bitch. Language, Mr. Hart. There's a child present. Marcus stepped closer. The drive. Now. Daddy! Ellie's voice was small, frightened. That's when the stairwell door burst open. Zoe stood there, breathing hard, still in her designer dress, but her hair wild, her shoes in her hand. Marcus, leave them alone. Miss Vale, your father expects you back at the restaurant. My father can go to hell. Marcus actually looked shocked. Miss Vale, I said leave them alone. This is between me and him. I have my orders, and I have this. She held up her phone, showing a recording app. Everything you just said about planting evidence, threatening a child. Think that'll play well on the evening news. You wouldn't, your father. My father killed my mother, so yes, Marcus, I would. The standoff stretched taut. Then from down the hall, doors started opening, neighbors peering out, phones in hand. Mrs. Chen from 4B was already recording. Everything okay out here? Mr. Rodriguez from 4F called out. Behind him, his teenage son had his phone up, live streaming. Just a disagreement, Marcus said smoothly, but his composure was cracking. Doesn't look friendly to me, Mrs. Chen said. She'd never liked strangers in the building. Liam, you and Ellie okay? These men were just leaving, Zoe said loudly. Weren't you Marcus? More neighbors emerged. The hallway was filling up. Everyone had their phones out now. This isn't over, Marcus said quietly. No, Zoe agreed. It's just beginning. Marcus and his men retreated to the elevator. As the doors closed, he made a phone call. They could hear him saying, "We have a situation." Inside, Zoe said urgently. We don't have much time. Back in the apartment, she was all business. He'll come himself now. Conrad Vale doesn't tolerate public defiance. So we make it more public, Liam said. Call the press. Already did. From the taxi, told them Conrad Vale's daughter has evidence of corporate murder. They'll be here within the hour. Zoe, Ellie tugged at her dress. Are you in trouble? Zoe knelt down. A little bit, but it's the good kind of trouble, the kind where you stand up to bullies. Like when I told Mrs. Patterson that Tommy was cheating. Exactly like that. The door exploded inward. Not knocked, exploded the frame splintering. Conrad Vale stood there, and the resemblance to Zoe was unmistakable. Same dark hair, same sharp features, but where her eyes held warmth, his were arctic. Enough, he said simply. Hello, Dad, Zoe said. You've had your tantrum. Time to come home. I am home. His eyes flicked dismissively around the apartment. This is what you choose over your family, over your legacy. This is a family. This is a legacy. People who care about each other more than money. Don't be naive. These people are using you. They smell money, and they want their piece. No, Dad, that's what you would do. These people took me in when I had nothing. You've never had nothing. You've had everything handed to you, including a mother poisoned by your greed. The slap was shocking in its swiftness. Zoe's head snapped to the side, a red mark blooming on her cheek. Don't you dare, Conrad Vale said coldly. Your mother's death was a tragedy. It was murder, and I have proof. You have stolen property, which you'll return immediately. No. He pulled out his phone. Marcus, come up. Bring the paperwork. What paperwork? Liam demanded. Involuntary commitment papers. My daughter is clearly having a psychotic break. Delusions of persecution theft, living in squalor with strangers. Any judge would agree she needs immediate psychiatric help. You can't. I can. I will. Unless. He looked at Liam. You seem like a reasonable man, Mr. Hart, a single father struggling to make ends meet. What if that struggle ended? What if you suddenly found a job waiting for you? Good salary, benefits, security for your daughter. All you have to do is tell the truth. That my daughter came to you in distress, that you tried to help, but she's clearly unwell. Go to hell. 100,000 a year, full medical, college fund for your daughter. Daddy, no, Ellie said, grabbing his hand. Zoe's our friend. Conrad's expression darkened further. Then they heard voices in the stairwell, many voices. Who? Conrad began. The door hanging broken was pushed aside. Reporters flooded in, cameras rolling, microphones extended. Behind them, more neighbors, everyone recording on their phones. Mr. Vale. Is it true your company poisoned the Raven Lake water supply? Miss Vale. What evidence do you have? Mr. Vale. How do you respond to allegations of corporate murder? Conrad's composure finally cracked. Get out. This is private property. Actually, Mrs. Chen said from the doorway, the hallway is public space, and we all saw you break down that door. Zoe. A reporter pushed forward. Will you make a statement? Zoe looked at her father, then at Liam and Ellie, then directly into the nearest camera. My name is Zoe Vale. My father's company, Vale Industries, knowingly poisoned 23 communities to increase profits. I have documents proving they knew people would die and chose to continue anyway. My mother was one of those people. So was Liam Hart's wife, Sarah. So were hundreds of others. She pulled out the red drive, holding it up. This contains 3 years of evidence. Internal memos, emails, test results, and recordings of board meetings where they discussed acceptable casualty rates. Lies, Conrad snarled. She's mentally ill. I also have this, Zoe continued, pulling out her phone. Recorded conversations with my father over the past year discussing the cover-ups, including one from last week where he offered to pay me $10 million to keep quiet. The reporters went into a frenzy. Conrad lunged for the phone, but Liam stepped between them. Don't touch her again. You don't know who you're dealing with. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, the man who killed my wife, the man who made my daughter grow up without a mother, and you're done. Sirens. Getting closer. Someone had called the police. Mr. Vale, one of the reporters said, do you have any comment on these allegations? Conrad Vale looked around the room at the cameras, the neighbors, his daughter standing with strangers who'd become family. His empire crumbling in a cramped apartment he'd never have stepped foot in before today. No comment, he said finally, and it sounded like defeat. The police arrived. Statements were taken. The broken door was photographed. Zoe gave them the drive, the recordings, everything. Conrad Vale was escorted out in handcuffs, not arrested yet, but detained for questioning about the break-in. As he passed Zoe, he stopped. You've destroyed everything. No, Dad. You destroyed everything. I'm just cleaning up the mess. After everyone left, after the reporters and police and neighbors, it was just the 3 of them in the apartment with its broken door. They sat on the couch, Ellie between them, exhausted. What happens now? Ellie asked. I don't know, Zoe admitted. There'll be investigations, trials. It'll be ugly. Will you have to leave? Zoe looked at Liam over Ellie's head. You paid rent through the month, though, he said, though we might need a new door. She laughed, and it turned into crying, and then Ellie was hugging her, and somehow Liam was too, and they sat there as the sun set, a strange little family forged in truth and loss, and the kind of courage that comes from having nothing left to lose but each other. Hey, Ellie said suddenly. We never had lunch. Can we order pizza? Pizza sounds perfect, Zoe said, wiping her eyes. With extra cheese. All the cheese in the world. As Liam called in the order, he watched Zoe help Ellie with her homework. The 2 of them bent over the kitchen table like nothing had happened. Like the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. Like justice might actually be possible. The silver bracelet caught the light as Zoe wrote, and for the first time it didn't look like chains. It looked like armor. The pizza arrived 40 minutes later, carried by a confused delivery guy who had to navigate around the broken door frame. The normalcy of it, counting out bills, debating toppings, Ellie insisting on saving a slice for breakfast, felt surreal after the chaos of the afternoon. They ate in exhausted silence, the weight of what had just happened settling over them like dust after an explosion. Zoe's phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Reporters, lawyers, extended family members who'd suddenly remembered she existed. She'd turned it face down on the counter, but the vibrations created a constant, anxious hum against the formica. "You should probably answer some of those," Liam said, watching her steadfastly ignore the device. "Tomorrow," she said, pulling a pepperoni off her slice and handing it to Ellie, who collected them like treasures. "Tonight, I just want to pretend everything's normal." But normal was a luxury they couldn't afford. Within an hour, a lawyer showed up, not one of Conrad's, but someone from the FBI's white-collar crime division. She was young, sharp-eyed, and very interested in the drive Zoe had already turned over to the local police. "We'll need you to come in for a formal statement," she told Zoe, business card extended. "Tomorrow morning, if possible. We're taking this very seriously." "What about my father?" "He's been released on bail, but his passport has been confiscated. He's not going anywhere." After the lawyer left, they worked together to hang a sheet over the broken doorway, a flimsy barrier that wouldn't stop anyone determined, but at least gave the illusion of privacy. Ellie had retreated to her room, overwhelmed by the day's events, and Liam could hear her talking to her stuffed animals, explaining the situation in the simplified terms of childhood. "She's processing," Zoe said, noticing his concerned expression. "Kids are resilient." You keep saying that like you're trying to convince yourself." "Maybe I am." She was washing dishes, movements mechanical. "I never meant for it to happen like this. I had a plan. A careful, quiet plan that wouldn't have involved you and Ellie. Plans change. This one exploded, and now you're both in danger because of me." Liam took the plate from her hand, set it aside. "We were already in danger. Every day we drank that water, every day we trusted that someone somewhere gave a damn about our safety. At least now we know what we're fighting." She looked up at him and he realized how young she really was. 23, she'd said. Sarah's age when they'd met. The comparison hurt in ways he wasn't ready to examine. "I should go to a hotel tonight," she said. "Give you both some space." "With a broken door, and your father's goons probably watching not happening." "Liam, you're staying. End of discussion." That night, sleep was elusive. Every creak of the old building, every footstep in the hallway above had Liam jolting awake. Around 3 a.m., he gave up and wandered to the kitchen for water, finding Zoe already there, laptop open, typing furiously. "What are you doing?" "Documenting everything. Every conversation I remember, every meeting I sat in on, every casual admission of guilt over champagne and caviar." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "I want it all on record before they try to discredit me." "They will, won't they?" "Try to discredit you." "Oh, absolutely. By tomorrow morning, there'll be stories about my mental health history. I saw a therapist after Mom died, which will become long history of psychological instability. They'll find ex-boyfriends to call me unstable, former friends to say I was always dramatic. They'll paint me as a spoiled rich girl having a breakdown." "How can you be so calm about it?" She stopped typing, considering. "Because I knew this was coming the moment I took that first document. You don't go to war with Conrad Vale and expect to come out clean. You just hope the truth is louder than the lies. And if it isn't, then at least I tried. That's more than most people do." Liam sat down across from her, studying her face in the laptop's blue glow. "Your mother would be proud." Zoe's hand stilled on the keyboard. "You think so?" "I know so. Sarah would have done the same thing if she'd known. She was fierce about justice, about protecting people. It's one of the things I loved most about her." "Tell me about her. Not the illness, not the end. Tell me about who she was." So he did. Sitting in the dark kitchen with this unlikely ally, Liam talked about Sarah for the first time in months without the words choking him. About her terrible singing in the shower, her obsession with true crime podcasts, the way she'd eat ice cream straight from the container while grading nursing exams, how she'd wanted 3 more kids and had already picked out names. "Oliver for a boy," he said. "Lily for a girl. She had this whole plan." "Plans," Zoe said softly. "We make so many plans." Dawn was breaking when Ellie padded out, dragging her rabbit. Why is everyone awake? Couldn't sleep, Liam admitted, pulling her onto his lap. Want some breakfast? They made pancakes, the three of them working around each other in the small kitchen with surprising ease. Ellie insisted on chocolate chips. Zoe added sliced bananas, and Liam managed not to burn anything despite his exhaustion. It felt almost like a regular morning if you ignored the sheet-covered doorway and the news vans starting to gather on the street below. I don't want to go to school, Ellie announced. You have to, sweetheart. Normal routine, remember. But what if the bad men come back? Zoe knelt down to Ellie's level. They won't. They're scared now because everyone's watching. Bad men like to work in the dark. We turned on all the lights. Promise? I promise. And you know what? I'll walk you to school myself. Would that help? Ellie nodded, then threw her arms around Zoe's neck. The gesture clearly surprised Zoe, who froze for a moment before carefully returning the embrace. An hour later, they walked Ellie to school together, Liam and Zoe flanking her like bodyguards. The news vans followed at a distance, cameras rolling. At the school gates, other parents stared and whispered. Ellie held her head high, Sarah's daughter through and through. Brave girl, the principal said quietly to Liam. If you need anything, any support, we're here. Walking back, Zoe's phone rang. She looked at the screen and paled. It's my aunt, Dad's sister. Answer it, she did on speaker. The voice that emerged was cultured, cold, and furious. You ungrateful little bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done? The stock has dropped 40%, 40%. That's billions in value gone overnight. Good, Zoe said simply. Your trust fund is frozen. Your credit cards are canceled. Every penny you have came from this family and we're taking it all back. I expected that. You'll be nobody. Nothing. Living in squalor with whatever trash took you in. Zoe hung up. She was always pleasant at Christmas. You okay? Actually, yeah, it's liberating in a way. No more pretending to be someone I'm not. She looked at her phone. Although I should probably get a new plan. This one's on the family account. They stopped at a cell phone store where Zoe discovered that her credit cards were indeed frozen. Liam paid for a basic prepaid phone, waving off her protests. Consider it an advance on next month's rent. I can't pay next month's rent. I can't pay for anything. I have exactly $37 in cash and that's it. Then you'll owe me. We'll work it out. The FBI office was a gleaming tower downtown, all glass and steel and institutional intimidation. Zoe was whisked away immediately, leaving Liam in a waiting room that smelled like burnt coffee and fear. He spent 3 hours reading the same magazine before a different agent appeared. Mr. Hart, we'd like to speak with you as well. His interview was shorter but intense. They wanted to know about Sarah's illness, about the water, about the timeline of events. They showed him documents from Zoe's drive confirming their authenticity. By the time he left, his head was pounding and his mouth felt like sandpaper. Zoe was waiting outside, sitting on a concrete bench, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. How'd it go? They believe me. They're opening a formal investigation. Multiple agencies, federal level. She laughed bitterly. Conrad Vale is about to learn what real power looks like. That's good, right? It's terrifying. Do you know what happens to whistleblowers in this country? Even when they're right, especially when they're right, they get destroyed. I just signed up for years of depositions, trials, death threats, and poverty. But you did the right thing. Did I? Or did I just trade one form of destruction for another? Before Liam could respond, his phone rang. Ellie's school. Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart. There's been an incident. Ellie's fine, the principal added quickly, but you should come. They found Ellie in the principal's office sporting a bloody nose and a defiant expression. Across from her sat a boy with a black eye. What happened? Tommy said Zoe was a criminal, Ellie explained. He said his dad saw it on the news, said we were harboring a fugitive, so I punched him. Ellie, you said to stand up to bullies. The principal sighed. Obviously, violence isn't acceptable, but given the circumstances and the provocation, we're treating this as a learning experience. Tommy has apologized for his words, and Ellie has apologized for her fists. Sorry for hitting you, Ellie muttered, but I'm not sorry for defending my family. In the car, Liam struggled between parental duty to condemn violence and pride in his daughter's loyalty. You can't hit people, Ellie. I know. Even when they're wrong. I know. But, Zoe added from the back seat, it was a pretty good punch from what I heard. Zoe, what she was defending truth and justice, very superhero of her. Ellie beamed in the rearview mirror. Back at the apartment, a man in an expensive suit was waiting by their sheet door. Liam tensed, but the man raised his hands peacefully. I'm not with Conrad. I'm actually here to help. Name's David Chen. I'm with the legal team representing the Raven Lake victims. We already have lawyers, Liam said warily. For the class action, yes. But Miss Vale is going to need her own representation, and you, Mr. Hart, might want to consider a civil suit. What Vale Industries did to your family goes beyond the class action parameters. I can't afford a lawyer. Contingency basis. I don't get paid unless you do. And with the evidence Miss Vale has provided, you're looking at significant compensation. Blood money, Liam said bitterly. Justice money, David corrected. Enough to ensure Ellie gets the education her mother would have wanted. Enough to buy a home without poisoned water. Enough to maybe finally breathe. They sat around the kitchen table, their war room now, as David laid out the legal landscape. Criminal charges were likely but would take time. Civil suits could move faster. The EPA was launching its own investigation. OSHA was involved. The SEC was looking into fraudulent disclosure. Conrad Vale is finished, David said with satisfaction. Even if he avoids jail, his reputation, his company, his legacy, it's all gone. He has very good lawyers, Zoe warned. Had. 3 firms have already dropped him. No one wants to be associated with this level of toxicity, literal and figurative. As David left promising to file paperwork immediately, Zoe's new phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. You stupid girl. Conrad's voice, but different, slurred, drunk. You've destroyed everything I built. 40 years of work. You destroyed it yourself, Dad. I just showed everyone the wreckage. Your mother would be ashamed. Mom would be alive if not for you. A pause. Then, I loved her. You loved her like you loved everything else as a possession, something to control. I gave you everything. You gave me things. Never time, never truth, never the father I needed. I should have had you committed years ago, seen the signs. What signs? Compassion, conscience, basic human decency. Weakness, just like your mother. Zoe hung up. Her hands were shaking. You okay, Ba? Liam asked. He's drunk. He never drinks. In 23 years, I've seen him have maybe 5 drinks total. People do unexpected things when their world collapses. I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. She shook her head. Then I remember the documents, the casualty projections, the decision to increase contamination because cleanup would delay a merger. That evening, the news coverage was wall-to-wall. Vale Industries stock in free fall. Former employees coming forward with their own stories. Environmental groups calling for congressional hearings. And at the center of it all, Zoe's face, the wayward daughter who brought down an empire. You're famous, Ellie said, watching the TV with fascination. Infamous, Zoe corrected. There's a difference. What's the difference? Famous is when people admire you. Infamous is when they can't decide whether to admire you or hate you. I admire you, Ellie said simply. You're brave. Or stupid. Sometimes they're the same thing, Liam said. They ordered Chinese food. Their kitchen had become a staging ground for documents and laptops. Cooking was impossible. As they ate lo mein straight from containers, Liam's phone rang. His former supervisor from Vale Industries. Liam, Jesus Christ, man. Is it true you're living with Conrad's daughter? It's complicated, Brian. Complicated. It's insane. Do you know what she's done? The entire company is imploding. Thousands of jobs gone. Those jobs were built on poisoned water and dead bodies. Come on, that's not we didn't know. Didn't we remember the Riverside Heights reports? The ones we were told to bury in the data? Silence. Then we were following orders. So were the Nazis. That's not fair. My wife is dead, Brian. That's not fair. He hung up. Zoe was watching him. You're going to lose friends over this, she said. Then they weren't really friends. It's going to get worse when the trials start, when people realize their pensions are tied to Vail Industries stock. When the layoffs hit, they'll blame us. Blame me specifically, but you by association. Let them. You say that now. My wife is dead, Liam repeated. Nothing they do can be worse than that. Later, after Ellie was asleep, they sat on the fire escape despite the cold, wrapped in blankets, watching the city lights. The news vans had finally left, but there would be more tomorrow. I need to get a job, Zoe said. A real job, not family nepotism. But who's going to hire Conrad Vail's daughter, especially now? You could sell your story, book deals, movie rights, David mentioned it. Blood money, like you said. Or a way to make sure the truth stays in the light. She pulled the blanket tighter. I keep thinking about what comes next. After the trials, the settlements, the justice we're hoping for. What then? Who am I when I'm not the girl fighting her father? You're Zoe, who makes origami and knows about scary mermaids and teaches Ellie math tricks. That's who I am here, in this little bubble. But bubbles pop. Not this one, Liam said firmly. This one's made of stronger stuff. How can you be so sure? Because it's already survived Conrad Vail. Everything else should be easy. She laughed, but it turned into a sob. I'm scared. I've been running on adrenaline and anger for so long, but now I'm just scared. Of what? Everything. Poverty, obscurity, being alone, never being able to escape what I've done. You're not alone. You have us. For now. For as long as you want. She looked at him, then really looked at him, and something passed between them that neither was ready to name. The moment stretched fragile and dangerous before Zoe pulled back. I should try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. She was right. The next morning brought a circus. Reporters camped outside, neighbors being interviewed, Ellie needing a security escort to school. The principal called to suggest perhaps homeschooling for a few days until things calmed down. They're punishing her for my choices, Zoe said miserably. They're protecting her, Liam corrected, though he shared her guilt. The doorbell rang. A new door had been installed that morning, paid for by David Chen's firm as an investment in their star witness. Through the peephole, Liam saw a woman who looked like an older, harder version of Zoe. It's my mother's sister, Zoe said, looking at the security app on her phone. Aunt Patricia. Should I let her in? Might as well. She won't leave otherwise. Patricia Vail entered like a queen surveying a particularly disappointing province. Her gaze swept the modest apartment with barely concealed disgust before landing on Zoe. You look terrible. Thanks, Aunt Pat. You look exactly the same. Don't be smart. I'm here to offer you a lifeline. Let me guess, recant everything, claim mental illness, and disappear to a nice facility in Switzerland. Europe is nice this time of year, and Dr. Brennan is very discreet. The answer is no. Patricia sighed as if dealing with a particularly slow child. Zoe, darling, you've made your point. You're angry about your mother, I understand. We all miss Claire, but destroying the family won't bring her back. The family destroyed itself. The family employed thousands of people who are now losing their jobs because of your tantrum. Those people were poisoning communities. Those people were following standard industry practices. Standard doesn't mean right. Patricia pulled out a checkbook. How much to make this go away? 10 million, 2050. Name your price. There isn't enough money in the world. Everyone has a price, even martyrs. What? She looked at Liam. What about you? Surely you'd like to provide better for your daughter than this. Get out, Liam said quietly. I could make you rich. You could make me complicit. Get out. Patricia stood smoothing her skirt. You're making a mistake, both of you. When this is over, when the cameras move on to the next scandal, you'll be left with nothing but principals. And principals don't pay rent. We'll manage, Zoe said. No, dear, you'll survive. There's a difference. I've seen what survival looks like, and trust me, it's not nearly as noble as you think. After she left, Zoe sat heavily on the couch. $50 million. She offered $50 million. Tempted? No, yes, no. She rubbed her face. God, I don't know. That would solve so many problems. And create so many more. I know. But Ellie could go to any college. You could buy a house, start over somewhere clean. Blood money. Everything's blood money if you look close enough. The question is whose blood and whether it meant anything. Ellie came home from school with a bruised shin and a note from her teacher. Some kids are saying mean things, the teacher had written. Ellie is handling it remarkably well, but you should be aware. What are they saying? Liam asked gently. That Zoe's a traitor, that she's going to make their parents lose their jobs, that we're probably getting paid to lie. Ellie's voice was matter of fact, but her eyes were hurt. I'm so sorry, Zoe said. This is my fault. No, Ellie said firmly. It's the bad man's fault, the one who poisoned the water. You're just telling the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts people. Only if they were living with lies. Out of the mouths of babes again. That night, unable to sleep, Liam found himself Googling the names from the documents. The victims. Sarah was there, of course, but so were hundreds of others. Young mothers, children, elderly people who'd lived in those communities their whole lives, never knowing their water was killing them. Maria Gonzalez, 34, kidney failure. Left behind 3 kids. Tommy Chen, no relation to David, 7, leukemia. Died 2 weeks before his 8th birthday. Robert Williams, 67, liver cancer. 40-year resident of Raven Lake. The list went on and on. Each name a life, a family destroyed, a hole in the world that money could never fill. Can't sleep either. Zoe stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light. Reading the names, trying to remember why we're doing this. May I? She sat beside him close enough that he could smell her shampoo, cheap drugstore brand, a far cry from whatever she'd used before. Oh, there's Mom. Claire Vale, 47, kidney cancer, Riverside Heights. She was so vibrant, Zoe said softly. Even at the end, kept saying she was going to beat it, that we'd go to Paris when she was better. She'd never been to Paris. Sarah wanted to see the Northern Lights. We were going to go for our 10th anniversary. How long were you married? 8 years, together for 11. He closed the laptop. Sometimes I can barely remember what she looked like healthy. The illness consumed everything at the end. I have pictures, Zoe said suddenly, of Mom before, when she was young and happy and whole. They help. Sarah hated pictures. Said the camera added 10 pounds. I have maybe a dozen from our whole marriage. That's not enough. No, it's not. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 people bound by loss and the dangerous hope of justice. Liam, Zoe's voice was small. What if we lose? What if he wins somehow? Then at least we fought. That's more than most people do. Is it enough, though, fighting and losing? Ask me when it's over. Friday brought new challenges. Ellie's school called. They were receiving threats. Nothing specific enough to act on, but enough to concern them. Perhaps a few weeks of homeschooling would be best. They're isolating her, Zoe said angrily, punishing an 8-year-old for adult crimes. Welcome to my world, Liam said bitterly. When Sarah got sick, we lost most of our friends. Nobody knows what to say to tragedy, so they just stop saying anything. That's horrible. That's human. They spent the morning turning the living room into a makeshift classroom. Zoe, it turned out, was a natural teacher making math into art and history into stories. Ellie bloomed under the attention, finally able to learn without the weight of her classmates' judgment. You're good at this, Liam observed. I wanted to be a teacher once, before I realized I was supposed to want an MFA and a trust fund husband. It's not too late. Isn't it? What school would hire Conrad Vale's daughter? One that values truth over reputation. In America, good luck finding that. David Chen arrived that afternoon with boxes of documents and a grim expression. We have a problem. Conrad's lawyers are claiming the evidence was obtained illegally. Stolen property, corporate espionage. They're moving to have it all thrown out. But people are dead, Zoe protested. That's a separate issue legally speaking. If the evidence is ruled inadmissible, the criminal case collapses. So he wins. Not necessarily, but it gets complicated. We need to establish that you had legitimate access to those documents. As a family member, as someone who witnessed crimes being discussed. Can you do that? Maybe. Some of it. I was in the room for some conversations, had access to his home office. That's a start. Make a list. Every meeting you attended, every conversation you overheard, every document you saw legally. We're going to have to rebuild this case piece by piece. They worked until midnight constructing a timeline of Zoe's legitimate knowledge. It was less than the full picture, but still damning. Conrad had been careless around his daughter, never imagining she was listening, remembering, documenting. This could work, David said finally. It's not everything, but it's enough to start. The FBI is also working on getting warrants based on your testimony. Once they can legally search Vail Industries servers, they'll find everything, Zoe finished. If Conrad hasn't destroyed it all first. The thought hadn't occurred to them. But of course, Conrad would be covering his tracks, deleting files, shredding documents. They were racing against time and a man with unlimited resources. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Marcus Conrad's fixer stood at their new door looking haggard. His usual polish was gone, replaced by stubble and wrinkled clothes. "May I come in?" "Why would we let you in?" Liam demanded. "Because I have information you need." Against his better judgment, Liam let him in. Marcus sat at their kitchen table, looking profoundly uncomfortable. "I've been with Conrad for 15 years, he began. "I've done things I'm not proud of, but I didn't sign up for murder." "You knew about the water," Zoe asked. "I knew about the cover-ups, the payoffs, the intimidation. I thought it was just business. Ugly business, but business." He pulled out a flash drive. "I kept insurance. Recordings, documents, things Conrad doesn't know I have." "Why?" "Because men like Conrad Vail eventually turn on everyone. I wanted protection." He pushed the drive across the table. "But after seeing those names, those kids, I can't be part of this anymore." "This is evidence of crimes," David said, examining the drive's contents on Liam's laptop. "You're implicating yourself." "I know. I've already talked to the FBI, made a deal. Testimony for immunity." "You're turning state's evidence." Zoe couldn't hide her surprise. "I'm trying to sleep at night. Haven't been able to since I saw the casualty reports." "Conrad will destroy you." "He's already trying. Frozen my accounts, canceled my contracts, spreading word that I'm unstable." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Funny how quickly 15 years of loyalty evaporates." "Welcome to the right side," Liam said dryly. "I don't expect forgiveness or understanding. I needed you to have this. The full truth." After Marcus left, they reviewed his files. It was worse than they'd imagined. Not just negligence, but active malice. Communities targeted because they were poor, unlikely to fight back. Politicians paid off. Regulators threatened. "How did nobody know?" Ellie asked. She'd been quietly coloring but had been listening. "People knew," Zoe said gently. "They just chose not to care." "That's evil." "Yes, it is." That night Liam woke to the sound of breaking glass. He rushed to the living room to find a brick on the floor, their window shattered. Attached was a note, "Traitor bitch." Zoe stood in her doorway, pale but unsurprised. It was only a matter of time. "This is a crime. We're calling the police. And tell them what someone's angry that I exposed murders, they'll file a report and nothing will happen. So we just accept this. We endure it. There's a difference." They spent the rest of the night cleaning up glass and boarding up the window. Ellie helped trying to be brave, but Liam could see the fear in her eyes. This was her home, her safe space, and it had been violated. "Maybe we should move," he said quietly to Zoe. "Where this will follow us anywhere. At least here we have neighbors who support us." She was right. Mrs. Chen had already knocked, offering her baseball bat-wielding grandson as security. Mr. Rodriguez had suggested a building watch. The community was rallying slowly but surely. Sunday's news brought a shock. Conrad Vail had suffered a heart attack. He was in intensive care condition, critical. "I should go see him," Zoe said. "Are you insane? He tried to have you committed. He's still my father." He's a monster. He's both. That's the hardest part. But the hospital wouldn't let her in. Conrad's sister Patricia had power of attorney and had barred Zoe from visiting. It's better this way, Zoe said, but Liam could see the hurt. You wanted to say goodbye. I wanted to say, I don't know, something, anything, that I loved him once, that I'm sorry it came to this, that Mom would have forgiven him. Would she have? No, but it sounds nice. The week that followed was a blur of legal meetings, FBI interviews, and media scrutiny. The story had gone national, then international. Vail Industries stock was worthless. 3 more companies connected to Vail were under investigation. The dominoes were falling. But for every victory there was a cost. Ellie couldn't return to school, the threats had escalated. Liam couldn't find work. His name was too associated with the scandal. And Zoe was becoming a ghost of herself, worn down by the constant pressure. We're winning, David assured them. The criminal charges are moving forward. The civil suits are strong. Justice is coming. But justice, Liam was learning, was expensive in ways that had nothing to do with money. The hospital called at dawn on Tuesday. Conrad Vail had stabilized but remained in critical condition. Patricia Vail had released a statement blaming the stress of his daughter's betrayal for his collapse. The media ran with it, and by noon Zoe's photo was plastered across every news site with headlines like, "Daughter's revenge nearly kills billionaire father," and "The woman who destroyed Vail Industries." "They're making me the villain," Zoe said, staring at her laptop screen with hollow eyes. She hadn't slept properly in days, surviving on coffee and the adrenaline of constant crisis. "You knew this would happen," Liam reminded her gently, closing the laptop. The powerful always control the narrative, at least at first. Knowing it and living it are different things. She rubbed her temples. "I've gotten 3 death threats this morning alone. One had my old address, my social security number, details about Mom's funeral. These aren't just angry strangers anymore. These are people with resources." The apartment had become a fortress of sorts. New lock security cameras donated by a sympathetic neighbor who worked in home security, and the baseball bat Mrs. Chen had insisted they keep by the door. But fortresses could also become prisons, and they were all feeling the walls closing in. Ellie sat at the kitchen table working through math problems Zoe had prepared, but her usual enthusiasm was dampened. She kept glancing at the boarded window, the physical reminder that their sanctuary had been breached. "I miss school," she said quietly. "I miss my friends." "I know, sweetheart," Liam said, though he wondered if she still had friends. Children could be cruel, and their parents crueler. The sins of the fathers visited upon the daughters. David Chen arrived just after lunch with a manila envelope and a grim expression that had become his default. "We have a problem. Actually, several problems." "Of course we do," Zoe muttered. First Vail Industries has filed a countersuit. They're claiming corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets, and intentional infliction of emotional distress leading to Conrad's heart attack. They're seeking damages of $500 million. $500 million. Liam laughed, but it was sharp bitter. "I have about $500 in my account. Good luck getting blood from this stone." "They're not expecting to collect. It's intimidation, pure and simple. Make the cost of fighting so high that you surrender." David pulled out documents. "Second problem, there's been a development with the FBI investigation. They executed search warrants on Vail Industries servers, but key files have been deleted, professionally wiped. Recovery might be impossible." "So Conrad covered his tracks," Zoe said. "We knew he would." "Yes, but the timing is suspicious. The deletion happened after his heart attack while he was unconscious." "Patricia," Zoe said immediately. "She has signing authority. She'd know exactly what to delete." "Can we prove it?" "Proving Patricia Vail did anything will be nearly impossible. She's smarter than Conrad in many ways, never leaves fingerprints." The third problem, David explained, was public opinion. While environmental groups and victim families supported them, Vail Industries employed thousands of people now facing unemployment. The economic ripple effects were spreading, and blame was being directed at the whistleblower rather than the criminals. "There's going to be a protest," David said. "Former Vail employees are planning to march on this building tomorrow." "They're protesting us?" Ellie asked, looking up from her math. "But we're the good guys." "Sometimes Zoe said softly. Being good means making enemies of people who aren't necessarily bad, just scared and angry and looking for someone to blame. That evening, they ate dinner in unusual silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what they'd started was becoming clearer. It wasn't just about Conrad Vale anymore. It was about an entire system, an economy built on hidden violence, and their small family had kicked the cornerstone. I've been thinking, Zoe said finally. Maybe I should leave. Not give up, just relocate. The attention on you and Ellie isn't fair. Running won't change anything, Liam said. They'd still blame us for harboring you, still see Ellie as the kid whose dad helped bring down Vale Industries. At least you'd have plausible deniability. You could say I manipulated you, that you didn't know who I really was. Lie, you mean? Survive, I mean. Ellie slammed her pencil down. Stop it. Both of you. We're a family now, aren't we? Families don't abandon each other when things get hard. The adults exchanged glances over her head. When had this happened? When had they become a family? But Ellie was right. Somewhere between shared meals and shared secrets, between origami cranes and broken windows, they'd become something more than landlord and tenant, more than co-conspirators. You're right, Liam said. We stick together. All for one, Ellie added. And one for all. Zoe finished, managing a small smile. The protest began at dawn. Liam woke to the sound of chanting, looked out to see hundreds of people filling the street. They carried signs, Vale eels jobs, whistleblower eels homewrecker, think of our children. The irony of that last one was particularly bitter. Should we go out, try to talk to them? Zoe asked, peering through the blinds. Absolutely not. That crowd is one spark away from becoming a mob. They watched as the crowd grew. News vans arrived, reporters interviewing angry former employees. One woman was crying on camera, explaining how her husband's chemotherapy would stop now that they'd lost insurance. An older man held up a photo of his grandchildren, saying he didn't know how he'd pay for their college now. Maybe we were wrong, Zoe whispered. Maybe the cost is too high. The cost was always high, Liam said. It was just being paid by different people. People in Raven Lake, Riverside Heights, communities that didn't have the cameras and the protests. Mrs. Chen knocked on their door. You need to see this, she said, leading them to her apartment, which faced the back of the building. Another crowd was gathering there, but this one was different. These people carried different signs: justice for Raven Lake, water before wealth. Thank you, Zoe Vale. The victim families, Zoe breathed, they came. They had. Hundreds of them, maybe more. People who'd lost loved ones to contaminated water, who'd been ignored and dismissed and bought off with insulting settlements. They were quieter than the protest out front, but their presence was powerful. A woman stepped forward with a megaphone. My name is Maria Santos. My daughter died at 7 years old because Vale Industries poisoned our water. She loved to dance. She'll never dance again. But today, because of Zoe Vale's courage, her death might mean something. It might save other children. One by one, people stepped forward to share their stories. Names, ages, dreams cut short. The reporters, drawn by the human drama, began shifting their coverage. The narrative was changing. We should go down, Zoe said. I should speak to them. It's not safe, Liam protested. These people lost everything because of my family. The least I can do is face them. Before he could stop her, she was gone, heading downstairs with the determination that had carried her this far. Liam grabbed Ellie's hand and followed. The crowd parted as Zoe emerged from the building. For a moment, everything was silent, two groups facing each other with Zoe in the middle. Then Maria Santos stepped forward and did something unexpected. She hugged Zoe. Thank you, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Thank you for choosing truth over family. That takes a courage most of us will never have to find. Others pressed forward, not in anger, but in gratitude. They touched Zoe's hands, shared their stories, showed her pictures of the dead. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, bearing witness to the devastation her father had caused. I'm sorry, she said over and over. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize for his crimes, an elderly man said. You're not responsible for what he did. You're responsible for what you do, and what you've done is righteous. The other crowd, the unemployed workers, watched this scene with confusion and growing discomfort. It was easy to hate a privileged whistleblower. Harder to hate someone surrounded by grieving families, someone crying for their losses. "My husband worked for Vail Industries," one woman called out from the employee crowd. "He's losing his job, but our nephew died in Riverside Heights, kidney failure at 15. She looked at her fellow protesters. Maybe we're angry at the wrong people." Not everyone agreed. Shouting erupted arguments between the two crowds. But something had shifted. The simple narrative of vengeful daughter destroying livelihoods had become complex human painful on all sides. The police arrived to separate the crowds, and in the chaos, Liam lost sight of Zoe. He found her finally in the building's lobby, surrounded by victim family members who'd formed a protective circle around her. She was clutching something, a small photo album. "They gave me pictures," she said, voice wondering, "of the people who died. They want me to have them to remember why we're fighting." That night, she spread the photos across the kitchen table. Dozens of faces stared back. Children in Halloween costumes, couples on wedding days, grandparents holding babies, all gone, all reduced to casualty projections in Conrad Vail's spreadsheets. "We can't let them down," she said. "We won't," Liam promised. The next morning brought unexpected news. Marcus Conrad's former fixer had been found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide, the report said, though the timing was suspicious. "He was supposed to testify next week," David said over the phone. "This is a massive blow to our case." "It wasn't suicide," Zoe said flatly. "Marcus was many things, but not suicidal. He was a survivor." "Can you prove it?" "Of course not. That's the point." The fear that had been simmering boiled over. If they could get to Marcus, a man who knew how to protect himself, what chance did they have? "We need to leave," Liam said. "All of us. Tonight. Go somewhere safe." "Where?" Zoe asked. "Where is safe from people with this much power?" "I don't know, but staying here is suicide. Maybe literal suicide that looks like an accident." They were packing essentials when David called again. "Don't go anywhere. FBI is sending protection. Marcus's death triggered protocols. You're all considered at-risk witnesses now." Within hours, their small apartment was transformed into something from a movie. Federal agents in the hallway security sweeps official protection. It should have felt safer. Instead, it felt like confirmation that the danger was real and immediate. "I don't like this," Ellie said, eyeing the agent suspiciously. "They look mean." "They're here to protect us," Liam assured her, though he shared her discomfort. "From who?" "Bad people." "I thought we already caught the bad people." "We're trying to, sweetheart, but bad people don't like being caught." The lead agent, a woman named Sarah. The name made Liam flinch every time, was professional but kind. "We'll be as unobtrusive as possible," she promised. "But I need you all to understand no leaving without escort, no unexpected visitors, no deviation from approved schedules." "For how long?" Zoe asked. "Until the trial, or until the threat level decreases." "So indefinitely." "I'm afraid so." Prison, Liam thought. A necessary prison, but prison nonetheless. That night, unable to sleep again, he found Zoe on the fire escape despite the agent's protests about sightlines and vulnerability. She was sketching again, but these drawings were different. Not hidden truths or architectural metaphors, but simple portraits. The victim families from the photos. "I dream about them," she said. "All these people I never met. They talk to me, tell me their stories. Is that crazy?" "No, it's human. I feel like I'm carrying them all, their hopes, their need for justice. What if I fail them?" "You won't. You can't know that." "I know you. You don't quit." She looked at him, and in the dim light from the street, he could see exhaustion written in every line of her face. "I'm so tired, Liam. Tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of being hated." "Come here," he said. And she did, leaning against him on the narrow fire escape. He put his arm around her, felt her tension slowly ease. "This is probably inappropriate," she murmured. "You're my landlord." "I think we passed inappropriate when you revealed you were corporate royalty investigating your father while living in my spare room." She laughed, soft and genuine. "Fair point. Besides, He added, technically, you haven't paid rent in 2 weeks. Bill me. They sat there in comfortable silence, two damaged people finding solace in shared purpose and unexpected connection. Inside, Ellie slept surrounded by federal agents. Outside, the city went about its business, unaware of the small revolution being planned in a fourth-floor walk-up. What happens after? Zoe asked eventually. When the trials are over, justice is served or not served, and the cameras move on. What happens to us? We figure it out, together. You make it sound simple. The best things usually are. It's people who make them complicated. She turned to look at him. Is this a thing us? I don't know. Could be. Should we survive? That's a big if. Worth fighting for, though. Before she could respond, Sarah the agent appeared in the window. Inside, both of you. Now. They scrambled in to find the apartment in controlled chaos. Agents on phones, laptops, open tension, thick. What's happening? Liam demanded. Conrad Vale disappeared from the hospital. Just gone. Security footage shows him leaving with Patricia Vale and unknown associates 2 hours ago. He was in critical condition, Zoe protested. Apparently not critical enough. We have bolos out, airports are being watched, but Sarah shrugged. People with his resources have options. He's running, Zoe said wonderingly. Conrad Vale is actually running. Guilty people run, Liam said, or desperate people, or dying people who want to die on their own terms. Zoe sank onto the couch. He won't go far, not Conrad. He'll want to watch his empire either be saved or burn. Either way, he'll want to see it. Any idea where he might go? Sarah asked. The house in the Hamptons, the cabin in Aspen, the yacht in Miami, the compound in Montana. Zoe listed them mechanically. Or none of those because they're too obvious. Patricia's smarter than that. The agent's phone rang. She listened face grave. Understood. She hung up. There's been a development. Patricia Vale wants to meet with you, Zoe. Tomorrow, neutral location lawyers present. Absolutely not, Liam said immediately. I have to, Zoe said. If there's a chance to end this, it's a trap. Everything's a trap now. At least this one comes with federal agents and lawyers. The meeting was set for a downtown law office, neutral ground with excellent security. Liam wanted to go, but Zoe refused. Someone needs to stay with Ellie. Keep her normal routine as much as possible. Her normal routine doesn't include federal agents and boarded windows. Then make a new normal. Kids are adaptable. She left the next morning in a convoy of black SUVs looking small and young, despite the armor of a borrowed suit. Liam and Ellie watched from the window until the vehicles disappeared. Is she coming back? Ellie asked. Of course she is. Promise? Liam hesitated. He'd learned not to make promises he couldn't keep. I hope so. That's not a promise. No, but it's honest. They spent the morning trying to maintain routine, math lessons, reading time, lunch preparation. But both kept checking the clock waiting for news. The agents were tense too, more than usual, speaking in hushed tones. Finally, after 3 hours, Zoe returned. She looked shaken, but intact. What happened? Liam asked. Patricia offered me a deal, drop everything, sign an NDA, and receive $50 million plus guaranteed safety for all of us. And to alt, I said no. She laughed, but it was hollow. She didn't understand. Kept raising the amount like it was a negotiation. Ended at $100 million. Jesus. Then she played her real card. Photos of you and Ellie, recent ones. From places the agents haven't been. The message was clear: they can reach you despite the protection. We knew that was possible. Knowing and seeing are different. She pulled out the photos. Ellie at the bodega with an agent. Liam taking out trash. Normal moments made sinister by the violation of being watched, cataloged, threatened. What did you say? I said if anything happens to either of you, I'll burn their entire world to ash. That I have copies of everything hidden in places they'll never find set to release if we disappear or die suspiciously. Do you? Now I do. Spent the ride back setting up dead man switches with David's help. Mutual Assured Destruction Corporate Edition. That evening, they received word that Conrad Vale had been located. He was in international waters on a yacht registered to a shell company technically beyond reach, but also unable to return without arrest. He's exiled himself, Zoe said. The king fleeing his burning kingdom. Good riddance. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, I just feel empty. Justice isn't always satisfying, Liam said. Sometimes it's just necessary. The next few days passed in strange suspension. The protests had died down, the media had moved on to fresher scandals, but the legal machinery ground on. Depositions, evidence review, preparation for trials that were still months away. Zoe threw herself into documenting everything she remembered working with prosecutors to build airtight cases. Liam focused on Ellie, trying to give her as much normalcy as possible despite their circumstances. They developed routines, morning lessons, afternoon art time with Zoe, evening walks with federal escort. This is weird, Ellie announced one evening over dinner. But good weird, like we're important. We're not important, Liam corrected. We're just doing something important. What's the difference? Important people think they matter more than others. People doing important things know everyone matters equally. Dad's getting philosophical, Zoe teased. Must be all that time with nothing to do but think. Someone has to think. You're too busy saving the world. Trying to, verdict's still out on whether it's working. It was working, though, slowly, incrementally, but working. Other whistleblowers were coming forward inspired by Zoe's example. Other companies were being investigated. The EPA announced new water testing requirements. Congress scheduled hearings. The machinery of change, rusty from disuse, was starting to turn. But machinery could be stopped, and those threatened by change were mobilizing. Lobbying intensified. Political donations flowed. Op-eds appeared questioning the whistleblowers' motives, their mental health, their credibility. They're trying to rewrite history, Zoe said, reading the latest hit piece. Make Conrad the victim and me the unstable daughter who destroyed him out of spite. Let them try. We have truth on our side. Since when has truth been enough? She had a point. Truth without power was just noise, and they were running low on power while their enemies had reserves. Then came the breakthrough. Avail Industries' accountant, conscience-stricken, or perhaps just seeing which way the wind was blowing, came forward with backup drives he'd been secretly maintaining. Everything Conrad had deleted was there, plus more. Years of crimes meticulously documented. This is it, David said, barely containing his excitement. This guarantees convictions. Multiple life sentences. For who? Zoe asked. Conrad's untouchable in international waters. Patricia will have 17 lawyers and claim ignorance. The board will say they were misled. Someone will pay. Someone, but not everyone, and not the ones most responsible. She was right to be skeptical. Within days, Patricia Vale announced she was cooperating fully with authorities, claiming she'd been horrified to discover her brother's crimes. Board members rushed to make deals pointing fingers at each other. Lower-level employees were thrown under buses, while those at the top hired better lawyers. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Zoe said. They're sacrificing pawns to save kings. Not if we don't let them, Liam said. You still have the recordings, your testimony, public pressure. Public pressure only works if the public keeps caring, and they're already moving on. She wasn't wrong. The news cycle was brutal, and Vail Industries was becoming old news. They needed something dramatic, something that would refocus attention. It came from an unexpected source. Conrad Vail, isolated on his yacht, had suffered another heart attack, this time fatal. The king was dead, his empire in ruins, justice forever denied. I should feel something, Zoe said, staring at the news alert. Grief relief, anger, something, but I just feel numb. He was your father. It's okay to mourn him. I'm not mourning him. I'm mourning the father I wished he'd been, the one who would have chosen family over profit, who would have loved Mom enough to keep her safe. The funeral was a media circus. Patricia Vale tried to bar Zoe from attending, but public opinion had shifted enough that she was forced to relent. Zoe went dressed in black, flanked by federal agents to bury the man who'd created and destroyed so much. I want to go with you, Liam said. No, this is something I need to do alone. Well, alone with a security detail. She returned hours later, dry-eyed but exhausted. It was awful. Patricia gave a eulogy about his business genius and vision. Nothing about the bodies, nothing about the water, like none of it happened. What did you expect? I don't know. Acknowledgement, accountability. Just once for someone in that family to admit what we did wrong. You did. I'm not that family anymore. Patricia made that very clear. I'm disowned, disinherited, disavowed. The Vale name dies with Conrad in her. Good. You're better off without it. Am I without the name? I'm just another unemployed art student with a useless degree and a reputation that makes me unemployable. You're Zoe. That's enough. She looked at him with something like wonder. You really believe that? I really do. That night, unable to sleep yet again, they found themselves in the kitchen sharing tea in silence. The apartment felt different without the immediate threat of Conrad, but not safer. If anything, his death had created a power vacuum that others would rush to fill. I've been thinking, Zoe said, about what's next. The criminal trials will happen with or without me now. The evidence is there, the other witnesses are ready. I could disappear, start over somewhere. Running. Strategic retreat. There's a difference. Is there? She sighed. Probably not, but I'm tired of being a symbol. I want to be a person again. So be both. Symbol when necessary, person the rest of the time. You make it sound easy. I'm starting to think the hard things are the only ones worth doing. Ellie appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. Why is everyone awake? Couldn't sleep, Liam admitted. Want some warm milk? I'm not a baby. But she climbed into his lap anyway, curling against him like she had when she was smaller. Bad dreams? Zoe asked gently. Sometimes, but also good ones. Mom comes to visit in the good ones. Liam's throat tightened. What does she say? That she's proud of us. That we're doing the right thing. That she likes Zoe. She says that, well, she doesn't say it with words. Dream talking is different, but I can tell. Zoe reached across the table, taking Ellie's small hand. I would have liked her too. She would have liked your art. She always said art was truth made visible. Sarah said that all the time. When she'd come home from the clinic tired and sad, she'd look at the drawings on the fridge and say, art made the hard days worth it. They sat there, three people bound by loss and purpose, as dawn crept through the boarded window. The war wasn't over. Might never truly be over, but this battle was winding down. Soon they'd have to decide what came next, who they'd be when the cameras turned away and the protectors went home. I love you both, Ellie said suddenly, simply, with the devastating honesty of children. Is that okay? More than okay, Zoe whispered, tears finally coming. It's perfect. It's everything, Liam added, holding them both close. Outside, the city was waking up. Inside, a strange small family was being born, forged in truth and tragedy, and the kind of love that comes not from blood but from choice. The water wars weren't over. Justice was still incomplete. But in that moment in that kitchen, they had something Conrad Vale never understood and never valued. They had each other, and that was worth more than all the poisoned empires in the world. The weeks following Conrad's death brought an unexpected quiet. The media attention shifted to the legal proceedings, which were complex and technical enough to lose public interest. The federal agents remained, but their presence had become routine, like furniture you stopped noticing. It was in this strange calm that real life began to reassert itself in small, insistent ways. We need groceries, Liam announced one morning, staring into their nearly empty refrigerator. Real groceries, not just takeout and frozen pizzas. I'll make a list, Zoe offered, but her hand trembled slightly as she wrote. The last time she'd been in public without cameras or federal escorts seemed like a lifetime ago. We'll go together, Ellie decided. All three of us. Like a normal family. Normal. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Agent Sarah agreed to a grocery run, though she insisted on protocols that made it feel more like a military operation than shopping. 2 agents would go ahead, 2 would follow, and everyone would wear bulletproof vests under their clothes. This is insane, Zoe muttered, adjusting the vest that made her look bulky and suspicious. This is temporary, Sarah corrected. The threat assessment is actually decreasing. Another few weeks and we might be able to scale back. The grocery store was a sensory assault after weeks in their apartment bubble. Fluorescent lights muzak the overwhelming normalcy of people buying milk and bread without federal protection. Ellie rode in the cart, despite being too big for it, pointing out items they needed with the seriousness of a general planning a campaign. "We need vegetables," she announced. "Zoe says we're getting scurvy." "I said we're at risk of scurvy," Zoe corrected, adding carrots to the cart. Slight difference. They were in the cereal aisle when Liam noticed the woman staring. Middle-aged, tired-looking, holding a box of cornflakes like a weapon. He tensed, ready to call for the agents, but then the woman spoke. "You're her, the Veil girl." Zoe straightened that mask of composure sliding into place. "Yes. My husband worked at Veil Industries for 23 years, maintenance department." Here it comes, Liam thought. The anger, the blame, the scene that would bring the agents running. "He knew," the woman continued, "about the water, the cover-ups. It ate at him. He started drinking, couldn't sleep. When you came forward," she set down the cornflakes, pulled out her phone, showed them a photo of a smiling man in work clothes. "He testified to the FBI yesterday, said your courage gave him his." "I'm sorry about his job," Zoe started. "Don't be. That job was killing him just slower than the water killed others. We'll figure it out. But I wanted to thank you for giving him permission to tell the truth." She walked away before Zoe could respond, leaving them standing in the cereal aisle with their cart and their guards, and the growing realization that the ripples of their actions were spreading in ways they'd never anticipated. "That was nice," Ellie said. "Can we get Lucky Charms?" The rest of the shopping trip passed without incident, though Liam noticed other shoppers recognizing them, whispering some hostile, but more simply curious. They were becoming something between celebrities and pariahs, famous for all the wrong reasons. Back at the apartment, they unpacked groceries with the efficiency of people who'd learned to work in close quarters. The domesticity of it struck Liam Zoe, knowing where they kept the pasta, Ellie automatically putting her juice boxes in the exact spot she liked, all of them moving around each other with practiced ease. "David called while we were out," Sarah informed them. "The first criminal trial starts in 3 weeks. Zoe, you'll be called to testify." "Which trial?" Zoe asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Patricia Veil, conspiracy, fraud, destruction of evidence. She'll never be convicted. Too smart, too connected." "Maybe, but the attempt matters. The public exposure matters." That night, Zoe sat at the kitchen table with legal documents spread before her, preparing for testimony that would put her aunt in prison. Liam watched her work, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way she pressed her pen too hard against the paper. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Yes, I do. Patricia's as guilty as Conrad, maybe more so. She knew exactly what she was doing." "She's still your family." "No. Family doesn't poison children for profit. Family doesn't threaten 8-year-olds to maintain power." She looked up at him. "You and Ellie are my family. This right here, this is family." The words settled between them, acknowledged but not examined. There would be time for that later when the trials were over and they could think about futures instead of just survival. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. Mrs. Chen from down the hall appeared with a covered dish and a determined expression. "You're too thin," she announced to Zoe. "All of you too thin. Stress eating, I know the signs." "Mrs. Chen, you don't have to." "I don't have to do anything. I'm 73 years old. I do what I want." She pushed past the federal agent with impressive authority. "This is my grandmother's recipe, healing soup. You eat, you feel better." She stayed for tea, regaling them with stories of the building's history, the families who'd come and gone, the dramas and celebrations of ordinary life. It was the most normal hour they'd had in weeks. "You're good for this place," she told Zoe as she left. "Brought attention to what matters, made people think. That's rare." "I also brought danger and disruption." "Life is danger and disruption. At least yours has purpose." After she left, they ate the soup, which was indeed healing in ways that had nothing to do with nutrition and everything to do with care. "We should do something for her," Ellie said. "And the other neighbors. They've been so nice." "Like what?" Liam asked. "A party. When this is over, a thank you party." "I don't think I remember how to throw a party," Zoe admitted. "It's easy. You need cake and music and people. Everything else is optional. The simplicity of it made them all smile. In Ellie's world, problems had solutions, sadness had endpoints, and parties could fix almost anything. That evening, Patricia Vale appeared on the news giving an exclusive interview to a sympathetic journalist. She wore pearls and a dark suit that suggested mourning while projecting strength. Every word was calculated to paint herself as another victim of Conrad's deception. "I trusted my brother completely," she said, managing to produce a single perfect tear. "To discover he was capable of such atrocities, it shattered everything I believed about family, about loyalty." "Bullshit," Zoe spat at the television. "She signed off on every decision. I have emails where she suggests increasing contamination levels to speed up property devaluation. Can you prove she wrote them? They're from her corporate account, which her lawyers will claim was accessed by assistance hackers, anyone but her." The interview continued, Patricia painting Zoe as a troubled young woman who'd been manipulated by anti-corporate activists who'd misunderstood legitimate business discussions as something sinister. "My niece was always fragile," Patricia said with practiced concern. "After her mother's death, she became paranoid, seeing conspiracies everywhere. We tried to get her help, but she refused." "I'm going to be sick," Zoe said, and she looked at Pale and shaking with rage. "Don't watch," Liam suggested, but she couldn't look away. "I need to see what I'm up against. Know the lies she's spreading." The interview ended with Patricia announcing a new charitable foundation in Conrad's name dedicated to water safety. The irony was so thick it could choke. "She's good," Sarah admitted. "Very good. This is going to make prosecution harder." "She's evil," Ellie said matter-of-factly. "Evil people are often good at seeming nice. That's how they get away with stuff." From the mouths of babes once again. The following days were filled with legal preparation. Prosecutors came to the apartment running Zoe through potential questions, teaching her how to remain calm under hostile cross-examination. They practiced for hours until she could recite dates and figures in her sleep. "Remember," the lead prosecutor said, "Patricia's lawyers will try to make you emotional. Angry or crying doesn't matter as long as you look unstable. Don't give them that satisfaction." How do I not get emotional about my dead mother and poisoned communities? By remembering that your composure is what will convict her. Your tears won't put her in prison. Your testimony will. Liam watched these sessions when he could saw how they drained Zoe, how each practice round stripped away another layer of her defenses. She was being turned into a weapon against her own family, and the cost was visible in the dark circles under her eyes, the weight she continued to lose despite Mrs. Chen's healing soup. "You need a break," he told her one evening after a particularly brutal session. "I need this to be over." "That too. But tonight you need a break." He enlisted Ellie's help, and together they transformed the living room into what Ellie called movie theater magic. Blankets on the floor, popcorn in bowls, the laptop propped up to play one of Ellie's favorite animated movies. Nothing heavy, nothing real. Just 90 minutes of talking animals and happy endings. "This is silly," Zoe protested, but she was smiling. "Silly is good," Ellie informed her. "Daddy says silly is the antidote to serious." Antidote, big word. "I've been reading the legal documents. They're boring but educational." They settled in, the three of them under blankets, while federal agents stood guard outside. The movie was ridiculous, full of songs and impossible physics, and exactly what they needed. For 90 minutes, they could pretend they were just a normal family having movie night. "Thank you," Zoe whispered to Liam as Ellie sang along with the closing credits. "For what?" "For remembering that we're human, that we need more than just justice and revenge. We need life. Otherwise, what are we fighting for?" The trial date approached like a storm system on radar, inevitable and ominous. The media attention ramped up again. Protesters returned, though fewer than before. The story was becoming old news except for those directly affected. 3 days before Zoe was scheduled to testify, David arrived with troubling news. "Patricia's lawyers have filed a motion to exclude your testimony. They're claiming emotional instability, undue influence, and potential coaching by prosecutors." "That's ridiculous," Liam said. "It's strategy. Even if the motion fails, it plants doubt in the jury's mind." "So what do we do?" Zoe asked. "We fight it. But Zoe, they're going to use everything against you. Every therapist visit after your mother's death, every college party where you drank too much, every angry email you ever sent. They've hired investigators to dig into your entire life. Let them dig. I have nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. The question is whether they can make nothing look like something. That night, Zoe sat with her laptop searching her own name, seeing what the world was saying about her. The results were split between hero and villain, whistleblower and traitor, brave and mentally ill. Her senior yearbook photo had become a meme. Her college art projects were being psychoanalyzed for signs of instability. "Stop," Liam said, closing the laptop. "This isn't helpful. I need to know what they're saying." "No, you need to remember who you are, not who they're painting you as." "What if they're right? What if I am just an unstable girl lashing out at her father?" "Then you're an unstable girl who happened to have evidence of mass murder. The two aren't mutually exclusive." She laughed short and bitter. "That's not as comforting as you think it is." "The truth rarely is." Ellie had been listening from the hallway. She came in carrying the silver paper crane Zoe had given her weeks ago. "You said this was special," she said, handing it to Zoe. "Maybe it will help you remember." "Remember what?" "That you're brave, that you're good, that we love you." Zoe pulled Ellie into a fierce hug, the crane crumpling slightly between them. "How did you get so wise?" "I had a good mom, and now I have a good—" "Zoe." The unfinished sentence hung there. What was Zoe to them? Not quite stepmother, more than friend. Something for which they had no proper word. "Family," Liam said firmly. "Now you have a good family." The day before the trial, they did something unexpected. They went to Raven Lake. It required negotiation with the federal agents, security preparations, and official vehicles, but Liam had insisted. "She needs to see it," he'd argued, "to remember why we're doing this." The town was smaller than Zoe had imagined, poorer too. Boarded-up shops lined the main street. A playground sat empty weeds growing through the swing set. And everywhere signs, "Water unsafe," "Do not drink," "Vale lied." People died. They stopped at the cemetery. Row after row of headstones, many new, many young. Sarah's grave was there, simple granite with her name and dates, and beloved wife and mother. "Hi, Mom," Ellie said simply. "This is Zoe. She's helping catch the bad people who hurt you." Zoe knelt by the grave, placing a small bouquet they'd bought at the one remaining flower shop. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for what my family did, for what I didn't stop sooner." "She would forgive you," Liam said. "She always believed in redemption." "I don't deserve forgiveness. Nobody deserves it. That's what makes it powerful." They visited other graves, reading names from the documents, putting faces to statistics. Maria Gonzalez's children had left toys on her grave. Tommy Chen had a baseball glove weathering beside his headstone. Each grave was a life a family destroyed, a future erased. "This is why," Liam said simply. "When you're on that stand tomorrow, remember this. Every grave, every name, every life that should still be here." "I'll remember," Zoe promised. On the drive back, they stopped at the clinic where Sarah had worked. It was closed now, had been since the water crisis was exposed. But someone had turned the front into a memorial. Photos of victims covered the walls. Flowers, some fresh, some dying, lined the walkway. "She loved this place," Liam said. "Even when they were understaffed and under-equipped. She said it was where help met hope." "It's where she got sick," Zoe said. It wasn't a question. "The water cooler in the break room. She drank from it every day, told patients the water was safe because that's what they'd been told." His voice cracked. "She was giving people poison and never knew it." "That's not her fault?" "No. But she'd have felt responsible anyway. That's who she was." They stood there in silence, three people bound by water and loss, while federal agents kept watch and the sun set over a poisoned town. That night, unable to sleep before the trial, Zoe worked on something at the kitchen table. Liam found her there at 3 a.m. surrounded by paper and scissors and tape. "What are you making?" "Something for tomorrow, a reminder." She held up an intricate paper sculpture, a tree with roots that became rivers that became hands reaching upward. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. "You can't bring that into court." I know, but I can know it exists, that something beautiful came from something terrible. Is that what we are? Something beautiful from something terrible. She looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw everything in her eyes, the fear, the hope, the growing feeling neither of them had named. Maybe. Is that okay? It's more than okay. It's everything. She stood, moved toward him, and they were kissing before either could think about why they shouldn't. It was desperate and gentle, fierce and careful, an acknowledgement of everything they'd been through and everything still to come. This is complicated, she said when they pulled apart. Everything about us is complicated. The trial starts tomorrow. I know. I might fail. Patricia might walk free. The whole thing might fall apart. I know. You could lose everything by being connected to me. I already lost everything. You helped me find something new. They stood there in the dark kitchen, foreheads touching, breathing the same air two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their lives. I love you, she whispered. I shouldn't, it's too soon, too complicated, too everything, but I do. I love you too, and Ellie loves you, and that's enough. Whatever happens tomorrow, that's enough. Morning came too soon. Zoe dressed carefully in the suit David had bought for her, conservative, expensive enough to show respect for the court, but not so expensive as to seem privileged. She looked older, harder, like someone who could face down Patricia Vale and win. You look like a warrior, Ellie said admiringly. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Warriors probably feel that way too. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Who told you that? Mom, and then Dad, and now you. They rode to the courthouse in a convoy of black SUVs, media helicopters tracking them from above. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters, protesters, supporters. Signs with Sarah's picture were held high. Justice for Raven Lake competed with Vale Itos Jobs for space. Remember, David said as they prepared to enter, you're not just testifying for yourself. You're testifying for everyone who can't. No pressure, Zoe muttered. All the pressure, he corrected. But you can handle it. Inside the courthouse, Patricia Vale sat at the defense table looking every inch the grieving sister wrongfully accused. She met Zoe's eyes once, and in that glance was all the family history, all the power and privilege and poison that had brought them to this moment. She looks confident, Liam observed from the gallery. She always does, Zoe replied. Even when she's lying, especially when she's lying. The bailiff called the court to order. The judge entered. The machinery of justice began to turn slow and inexorable. The prosecution calls Zoe Vale to the stand. She stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked forward. Each step felt like a mile, each breath an effort. But she thought of the cemetery, of Sarah's grave, of Ellie's courage, and Liam's faith. She thought of the paper sculpture on their kitchen table, Beauty from Ashes. She placed her hand on the Bible, the weight of it solid and real. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And she did. For hours she told the truth. About the meeting she'd attended, the documents she'd seen, the conversation she'd overheard. She named names, cited dates, provided details that painted a picture of deliberate, systematic poisoning for profit. Patricia's lawyer tried everything. He implied mental illness, suggested coaching, accused her of revenge for being disinherited. But Zoe remained calm, clear, devastating in her precision. You hate your aunt, don't you? The lawyer asked. I pity her. You want to see her in prison. I want to see justice. If that means prison, then yes. You've destroyed your family for attention. My family destroyed themselves for money. You're enjoying this. I'm heartbroken by this. But heartbreak doesn't make it less necessary. When it was over, when she'd been released from the stand, she walked back to Liam and Ellie on shaking legs. They caught her as she nearly collapsed, holding her up, holding her together. You did it, Liam whispered. It's not over. No, but you did your part. You told the truth. They left through a side door to avoid the media, but cameras found them anyway. The image that would run in papers nationwide, Zoe Vale, exhausted but unbroken, flanked by the family she'd chosen over blood, walking away from the courthouse where she'd just testified against the last of her biological family. Home, the federal agent asked. Home? Zoe confirmed, and the word meant something different now. Not the Vale Mansion, or the corporate legacy, or the poisoned empire. Home was a fourth-floor walk-up with a broken window and two thin walls and two people who loved her not for her name or her money, but for her courage to tell the truth. That night they ate Mrs. Chen's soup and watched another silly movie and pretended the world wasn't waiting for a verdict that would define all their futures. They were together, and for now, that was enough. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. Tonight, they were family. The verdict came 3 days later, delivered by a foreperson who couldn't meet Patricia Vale's eyes. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit fraud, destruction of evidence, criminal negligence resulting in death. The courtroom erupted, supporters cheering while Vale Industries' remaining defenders sat in stunned silence. Patricia's perfect composure finally cracked her face, contorting with rage as she turned to stare at Zoe. "You little bitch," she mouthed across the courtroom, the cameras catching every venomous syllable. Zoe didn't flinch. She sat between Liam and David Chen, hands folded, face carved from stone. Only Liam could feel her trembling, could see the way her knuckles went white from gripping her own fingers. 25 to life, the judge announced after a recess, to be served consecutively with federal charges pending. Patricia Vale was led away in handcuffs, her designer suit and pearls a jarring contrast to the chains. She looked older, suddenly diminished, the power that had defined her evaporating like poisoned water in sunlight. Outside the courthouse, the scene was chaos. Reporters swarmed, victims' families wept and embraced, and somewhere in the crowd, someone started chanting "Justice for Raven Lake," until hundreds of voices joined in. Zoe stood on the courthouse steps, overwhelmed by the noise and emotion, until Maria Santos pushed through the crowd and pulled her into a fierce hug. "You did it," Maria whispered. "You gave my baby justice." One by one, other family members approached. Not the angry employees who'd lost jobs, but the people who'd lost everything that actually mattered. They touched Zoe's hands, showed her photos of the dead, thanked her with tears streaming down their faces. She stood there, receiving their gratitude like penance, each thank you, both a blessing and a weight. "Can we go home now?" Ellie asked, tugging at Liam's sleeve. The crowd was overwhelming for an 8-year-old, the emotions too big and raw. They made their way to the waiting SUV, agents forming a protective barrier. As they drove away, Zoe finally broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep, 18 months of suppressed grief and rage pouring out in the safety of the vehicle. "It's over," she gasped between sobs. "It's actually over." "The criminal trials are over," David corrected gently. "The civil suits are just beginning, and the real work of rebuilding those communities, cleaning the water, making sure this never happens again, that's going to take years." "But Conrad's dead and Patricia's in prison." "Yes, the kings have fallen. Now we deal with the kingdom." Back at the apartment, Mrs. Chen had organized what she called a victory dinner, but what looked more like a block party crammed into a hallway. Neighbors had brought dishes, strung up lights, and someone had even found a banner reading "Congratulations" that had clearly been repurposed from someone's graduation. "You did good," Mrs. Chen said, simply pressing a plate of dumplings into Zoe's hands. "Now eat. You're still too thin." The FBI agents looked uncomfortable with the sudden party, but even they seemed to relax as the evening wore on. Agent Sarah accepted a beer from Mr. Rodriguez, who was regaling anyone who'd listen with his theory about how he'd known Zoe was special from the start. "She had that look," he said, gesturing dramatically, "like a fighter, like someone who wouldn't back down." "She looked terrified," his teenage son corrected. "The first day she moved in, she looked like she was going to throw up." Zoe admitted, laughing for the first time in days. "I was terrified every single day." "But you did it anyway," Liam said, pulling her close. "That's what courage is." They'd been careful about physical affection in public, unsure what they were to each other, unwilling to complicate an already complex situation. But tonight, with Patricia in prison and the neighbors celebrating around them, it felt safe to acknowledge what had been growing between them. "Are you two dating now?" Ellie asked loudly, causing several neighbors to turn and stare. "Ellie," Liam's face flushed. "What?" "It's a reasonable question. You kissed in the kitchen. I saw." "You were supposed to be asleep." Nobody sleeps before a trial. That's just science. Zoe knelt down to Ellie's level. Would it be okay with you if your dad and I were dating? Ellie considered this seriously. Would you move out of your room into Dad's room? Eventually, maybe. Would you still teach me origami? Always. Would you be my mom? The question hung in the air like a held breath. Zoe looked at Liam, who nodded slightly. I could never replace your mom, Zoe said carefully. She'll always be your mom, but I could be your Zoe who loves you like a mom loves. Is that enough? That's perfect, Ellie said, throwing her arms around Zoe's neck. The party continued late into the evening, the kind of celebration born from shared trauma and unexpected victory. But eventually, the neighbors drifted away. The agents resumed their posts, and the three of them were left alone in their apartment that had become command central for a revolution. It feels empty, Zoe said, looking at the space where boxes of evidence had been stacked, where lawyers had camped out, where federal agents had monitored threats. It feels peaceful, Liam corrected. I don't know what to do with peaceful. Learn. We all need to learn. The next morning brought unexpected news. The Vail Industries Board, desperate to salvage something from the wreckage, had voted to liquidate all assets and establish a massive victim compensation fund. It wouldn't bring back the dead, but it would provide for their families, pay for medical treatment for the sick, fund water cleanup efforts for decades to come. How much? Zoe asked David when he called with the news. Billions. The entire company, essentially. Everything Conrad built will be dissolved and distributed to the people he hurt. Good. There's more. There's apparently a trust in your name that Patricia couldn't touch. Your mother set it up separately outside the family structures. It's yours free and clear. How much? About $2 million. Zoe sat down hard. After months of surviving on nothing, the number seemed impossible. I don't want it. It's not Vail money, David explained. It's from your mother's family, her inheritance that she kept separate. She wanted you to have choices. Choices. After so long with none, the concept felt foreign. What would you do? She asked Liam. Take it. Use it for good. Honor your mother's wishes. It feels like cheating. Everyone else lost everything. You lost everything too. Your family, your name, your future. This isn't a reward. It's a tool. That afternoon, they walked to the bank, federal agents trailing discreetly. Zoe had never had her own account before. Everything had always been connected to the family, monitored and controlled. The banker, recognizing her name, tried not to stare as she opened a simple checking account and deposited the check David had brought. What's the first thing you're going to buy? Ellie asked as they left. A door, Zoe said immediately. A really good door to replace the one Conrad broke. That's boring. Boring is underrated. But the first thing she actually bought was art supplies. Real ones, professional grade, the kind she'd only dreamed of when she was pretending to be a struggling student. She set up a studio in her room, what had been her room, though she spent most nights now in Liam's bed, the three of them learning to be a family in ways that had nothing to do with blood. What are you making? Liam asked, finding her covered in clay one evening. I don't know yet. My hands are figuring it out. What emerged over the following days was a sculpture that seemed to capture everything. Twisted metal representing the poisoned infrastructure, clear resin for the water that should have been clean, and rising from it all, delicate paper cranes, one for each victim whose name they knew. It's heartbreaking, Liam said when she showed him the finished piece. It's supposed to be, but also hopeful. See how the cranes are rising? They're not trapped. They're transcending. What will you do with it? I don't know. It's not for sale. Maybe donate it to a museum or to Raven Lake for their memorial. You could show it, have an exhibition, tell the story through art. Who would come to see the art of Conrad Vail's disgraced daughter? Everyone, Ellie said from the doorway. Because you're not his daughter anymore. You're Zoe. You're ours. The truth of it settled over them like grace. She wasn't Conrad Vail's daughter anymore, not in any way that mattered. That version of her had died with him, been buried with Patricia's conviction. What remained was someone new, someone forged in truth and courage, and the unexpected love of strangers who'd become family. A month passed. The federal agents withdrew the threat level, having decreased to manageable. The media moved on to new scandals. Life developed a rhythm that wasn't normal. Nothing would ever be normal again, but was sustainable. Liam found work with a nonprofit focused on environmental justice, his experience making him valuable in ways he'd never imagined. Ellie returned to school with her head high, and while some kids were cruel, others were curious, even admiring. Sophia says her mom says you're a hero, Ellie reported one afternoon. I said you're just Zoe, but heroes can be just people, right? Heroes are always just people, Zoe agreed. That's what makes them heroic. She'd started teaching art at the community center, volunteering at first, then accepting a small salary when they insisted. Her students were kids from Raven Lake, in similar communities, kids who'd lost parents and siblings to corporate greed. They made art about grief and rage and hope, and Zoe guided them through it, understanding their pain in ways other teachers couldn't. Miss Zoe, one boy asked during a class, did you love your dad even though he was bad? Yes, she answered honestly. Love doesn't stop just because someone does terrible things. It just gets complicated and painful. My dad worked at the plant. He knew about the water but didn't say anything. Does that make him bad? It makes him human. Humans make choices, and sometimes they're the wrong choices, but that doesn't erase all the good they've done too. So people can be both good and bad. Most people are both. The trick is trying to be more good than bad and fixing the bad when you can. It was during one of these classes that Zoe got the call. An unknown number that she almost didn't answer. Is this Zoe Vale? Yes. This is Dr. Morrison at Mercy General. Your Aunt Patricia Vale is asking to see you. She's in prison. She's in our secured wing, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She has perhaps days. Zoe stood frozen in the community center, surrounded by children's art and the echo of their laughter from the playground outside. I'll come, she heard herself say. She went alone despite Liam's protests. The hospital's secured wing was a strange purgatory, neither quite prison nor hospital. Patricia lay in the bed shackled despite being too weak to move, her designer pride replaced by a hospital gown that made her look small and mortal. You came, Patricia said, her voice a whisper of its former authority. Your family, despite everything. Family, Patricia laughed, or tried to. It came out as a cough. We certainly made a mess of that concept, didn't we? Conrad made a mess. You helped him. I tried to clean it up. And look where we all ended up. Him dead, me dying, you. She studied Zoe. You look happy. It's annoying. I am happy. It's surprising. With that man and his child playing house in that pathetic apartment, building a life with people who love me, something you and Conrad never understood. Patricia's eyes flashed with the old fire. We understood love. We just understood that power mattered more. And where did that understanding get you? Rich, powerful, feared, alone, dying, despised. They stared at each other, the last of the veils separated by choices and chains, and the kind of damage that couldn't be undone. I didn't call you here to fight, Patricia said finally. I called to tell you something about your mother. Zoe tensed. What about her? She knew about the water. Not the full extent, but she suspected. She confronted Conrad, threatened to go public. That's why we moved you both to Riverside Heights. He said it was for a promotion, but it was punishment. He wanted her to see what happened to people who opposed him. You're lying. I'm dying. What would be the point? Patricia pulled out a small key from under her pillow. Safety deposit box. Bank of America branch 432. Your mother left something for you. Conrad thought he'd destroyed everything, but she was smarter than he knew. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm dying with enough sins. This one at least I can rectify. Zoe took the key, its weight heavier than metal should be. I won't forgive you, she said. I don't want forgiveness. I want you to know that your mother fought him. She lost, but she fought, just like you. I won. Did you? You destroyed an empire, yes. But empires rebuild, usually worse than before. You won the battle, child. The war continues long after we're all dead. Patricia died that night. Zoe didn't stay, didn't mourn, but she did call the prison chaplain to ensure someone was with her at the end. Even monsters deserved not to die alone. The safety deposit box contained three things: a letter, a USB drive, and a wedding ring Zoe had never seen her mother wear. The letter was dated a month before Claire Vale's death. My darling Zoe, if you're reading this, then I've failed to stop him, and you've discovered the truth. I'm sorry I wasn't braver sooner. I'm sorry I chose comfort over conscience for so long. By the time I understood what Conrad was, we were too deep in the web to escape. The drive contains everything I could gather. It's not enough for legal action, but it might help you understand. The ring was my mother's, your grandmother's. She was a teacher who married a factory worker, and they were happy in ways Conrad and I never were. Wear it to remember that love matters more than legacy. Fight him if you can, but don't let the fight consume you. Live love, build something better from the ashes. That's the only revenge worth having. All my love, Mom. Zoe sat in the bank's private room and cried for an hour. Then she went home, really home, to Liam and Ellie, to their fourth-floor walk-up that had become a sanctuary. She showed them the letter. The ring played the files on the drive, which confirmed everything they already knew, but with her mother's voice narrating the evidence. She was brave, Ellie said solemnly, like you. She was scared, Zoe corrected, like me, but she tried anyway. That's what brave is. That night, as they lay in bed with Ellie asleep between them, nightmares had brought her to their room. Liam asked, "What now? Now we live. We build that something better Mom wrote about. Here, in this apartment with its thin walls and noisy neighbors, yes, here, where we found each other, where we became family. The money could buy us a house, somewhere safe, clean, with good schools for Ellie. Safety is an illusion. Clean can be contaminated, and Ellie's already in a good school. She just had to fight for her place in it. So we stay. We make this place better. We help the neighbors who helped us. We show that community matters more than commerce." You're starting to sound like an activist. Maybe I am. Maybe that's what Conrad's daughter was always meant to become, his opposite. The next morning brought reporters. Patricia's death had renewed interest in the Vale story, and everyone wanted Zoe's reaction. She gave one statement standing in front of their building with its graffiti and fire escapes and undeniable life. Patricia Vale died as she lived unrepentant. But her death ends the Vale dynasty and begins something new. The Victims Fund is being established, the water cleanup has begun, and communities are healing. That's what matters. Not the death of one more Vale, but the life returning to places they poisoned. "What's next for you?" a reporter called out. "Life? Art, family, the things that always mattered but got lost in the noise." "Will you keep the Vale name?" Zoe looked at Liam and Ellie standing beside her. "No, that name dies with Patricia. I'm thinking of taking a new name, Hart maybe, if they'll have me." Liam's proposal came a week later, not with fanfare, but with quiet certainty. They were making dinner, Ellie doing homework at the table, life happening in its ordinary glory, when he said, "Marry me." Zoe nearly dropped the pasta pot. "What? Marry me. Take my name for real. Be Ellie's legal mother. Make this official." "Liam, I know it's fast. I know we've been through trauma, and that's not a foundation for Siem. Yes." What? Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to marriage and motherhood and making this beautiful, complicated, impossible thing we've built official." Ellie looked up from her homework. "Are we having a wedding?" "A small one," Zoe said. "Can I be the flower girl?" "You can be everything." They married 2 months later in the community center where Zoe taught art. The walls were covered with her students' work testimonies to survival and hope. Maria Santos officiated. She'd gotten ordained online specifically for this. Mrs. Chen made the cake. Mr. Rodriguez's son DJ'd with his laptop and speakers that crackled, but nobody cared. David Chen served as Liam's best man. "You know," he said in his toast, "when I took this case, I thought it was about bringing down a corporation. I didn't realize it was about building up a family." Zoe wore her grandmother's ring and a simple dress bought from a department store. Liam wore his only suit. Ellie wore a princess dress from Halloween that she insisted was perfect. And it was. Do you, Zoe Vale, take this man? Not Vales, Zoe interrupted. Just Zoe. Zoe nothing soon to be Zoe Hart. Maria smiled. Do you, Zoe nothing, take this man to be your husband? I do. Do you, Liam Hart, take this woman to be your wife? Absolutely. And do you, Ellie Hart, take this woman to be your bonus mom? Forever and ever. Then by the power vested in me by the internet and the state of New York, I pronounce you a family. They kissed while the community center erupted in cheers. Someone started the Justice for Raven Lake chant, but it morphed into love for the Harts. And even the federal agents who'd come as guests were smiling. The reception was potluck, everyone bringing something, sharing recipes and stories, and the kind of joy that comes from witnessing love triumph over loss. Zoe danced with her students. Liam danced with Mrs. Chen, and Ellie danced with everyone spinning in her Halloween princess dress until she was dizzy with happiness. No honeymoon, someone asked. This is our honeymoon, Zoe said, gesturing at the room full of chosen family, right here with everyone who matters. Late that night, after the community center was cleaned and Ellie was asleep in her bed, Liam and Zoe stood on their fire escape looking out at the city lights. She wore his grandmother's ring now, alongside her mother's 2 generations of love on one hand. Regrets? He asked. None. I just married Conrad Vale's daughter. My life insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. She laughed, leaning into him. Former daughter, disowned daughter, whistleblowing, family-destroying, justice-seeking daughter. My wife. That too. A year later, they stood in a different kind of gathering. The Raven Lake Memorial was being dedicated, and they'd been invited to speak. The sculpture Zoe had made, the one with metal and resin and rising paper cranes, stood at the center, donated to the town as a permanent reminder. We gather today not to celebrate victory, but to acknowledge loss, Zoe said at the podium, Liam and Ellie beside her. Every name on this memorial represents a life cut short, a family broken, a future stolen. We cannot bring them back. We can only promise to remember to remain vigilant, to never let profit matter more than people again. She placed 3 items at the memorial's base. Ellie's wooden home key that she'd made in art class, the first rent receipt Liam had given her for the room that changed everything, and a silver paper crane, not the original, which had been crumpled in too many hugs, but a new one, perfect and pristine. Symbols, she explained to the crowd, of what matters. Home is not a building, but the people who shelter you. Value is not in money, but in the connections we make. And hope rises even from the deepest poison if we're brave enough to fold it into being. The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping, then everyone was applauding and crying and holding each other. The war Patricia had spoken of wasn't over, would never be over as long as corporations valued profit over people. But this battle had been won, and from its victory 1,000 small revolutions were blooming. Ready to go home? Liam asked. We are home. Ellie said, wise beyond her years. Home is wherever we are together. They drove back to the city in their used car, bought with the first payment from the victims' fund that Zoe had qualified for as Claire Vale's daughter. The apartment waited for them with its thin walls and noisy neighbors, and walls covered in Ellie's art and Zoe's sculptures. Mrs. Chen had left soup on their doorstep. Mr. Rodriguez's music drifted through the walls. The federal agents were long gone, but the community watch remained neighbors looking out for neighbors. We should move eventually, Liam said as they climbed the 4 flights. When Ellie gets bigger, when we need more space. Maybe, Zoe agreed, but not yet. This place has more work to do. What work? Healing work, teaching work. The work of showing that ordinary people in ordinary places can do extraordinary things. That night after Ellie was asleep, they sat at the kitchen table where it all began, where Zoe had first sat pretending to be someone she wasn't, where truth had finally emerged, where a family had been forged from loss and lies and the dangerous hope of justice. I love you. Liam said words that had become daily, but never routine. I love you too, Zoe replied. Liam Hart, who gave me shelter, when I had none, who believed me when I told the truth, who loved me despite my name. Because of your name. Because you were brave enough to destroy it for something better. We destroyed it together and built this together. Outside the city hummed with its million stories, its hidden corruptions and secret heroisms. Somewhere water was being poisoned, somewhere whistles were being blown, somewhere families were being destroyed and created and recreated from the rubble of what was. But here in this fourth-floor walk-up, with its broken, then-fixed door and walls that had heard too much truth, the Hart family was home. The revolution had been won, the war continued, but tonight there was soup and love and the promise of tomorrow. Zoe Vale had died with her father's empire. Zoe Hart lived on teaching art to traumatized children, loving a traumatized man and his traumatized daughter, making beauty from ashes, and ensuring that the names on the memorial meant something more than acceptable losses. The $200 room had become a $1 million victory, though its value had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with the courage to open a door to a stranger who turned out to be salvation. Home, as Ellie had said, was wherever they were together. And they were together against all odds, despite all losses, because of all truths. The water wars weren't over. But in this small apartment, in this chosen family, in this impossible love, they had won everything that mattered.